My entitled landlord refuses to allow me to move out early, despite the fact that his apartment that he rented to me is full of cockroaches. So I decided to get some revenge on this guy by suing him into oblivion, which will eventually lead him into financial ruin and ruining his business entirely. And I'm honestly feeling so satisfied about this, and I can't wait for it all to go down. Here's what happened. Okay, to begin with, I'm a lawyer. I know the laws in my city pretty well. So when I moved into a new apartment and learned that I had a cockroach infestation, I started planning. And you know what? I decided to move. I asked the landlord of my building to enter into a mutual release form so we could just go our ways amicably. I mentioned the cockroaches and my frequent maintenance requests, and I even offered to find them a new tenant for them. I mean, I figured it's the best for the both of us, right? Well, they waited for about a month to even respond, and during that time, I had already contacted multiple lawyers who found a legal loophole for me to break my lease clean and easy. Not only that, I pay the lawyers $700 to do it, they file the lawsuit, the landlord then has to pay my attorney fees and back the rent, and I get my $700 back and then some on top of it, which is really nice. So when the landlord finally got back to me on my mutual release proposal, which would have greatly benefited them, he said to me, "No, only if you pay this exorbitant several $1,000 break lease clause." And when he said this, I couldn't help but smile. You absolute idiots, you morons. If I ask for something nicely, just give it to me the first time, because I already have 6 evil backup plans. Anyways, I responded back and I said, I do not agree to the break lease clause. And the property manager wrote back with something condescending, saying something like, "I'll let the landlord know your disapproval." So unbeknownst to the landlord, I send the money to the attorney and now it's all going down. Because why would I pay thousands of dollars to break the lease when it's literally free to sue this guy? Like, what an idiot. So not only will they get a surprise lawsuit, they'll also lose out on months of rent, plus the back rent that they owe me, and they won't get rent from the new tenant that I could have and would have found them. I'll leave the place as gross as I found it, and I will be driving into the sunset while they scramble and realize they played themselves. Oh, on top of that, I also called the city building inspectors, and I helped them investigate in the meantime. So now the landlord will get a big fine and a formal violation by the city, which they have to disclose by law to future tenants. So the chances of them even finding a new tenant who would agree to live with cockroaches will be very, very low, unless they drastically reduce the rent, but either way, I win. You may have been able to mislead me about the cockroaches and the cleanliness of the place, but you won't be able to fool the next person. So I guess you should have done the mutual release form, huh? Hope you learned your lesson, because I am not the one to mess with. So that's my story of my petty little revenge against my slumlord. Stay safe and stay smart, and always play chess and not checkers. Dude, this original poster is my hero. Like, seriously. This guy swooped in like Batman and he's like, "Oh, you don't want to sign the mutual release proposal, huh? Welcome to the next 6 months of your life where I win a lawsuit, get all my money back, and then you've got to deal with it probably forever." Because I've been there with landlords before. Dude, let me tell you, some people suck at managing their properties. Like, seriously, I had one guy who literally did nothing about like a spider infestation where they just didn't do anything and those things were everywhere. And I don't know about you, but like, I don't like spiders. Like, just thinking about it makes my skin crawl. So I can only imagine what the original poster went through, because cockroaches are right up there, dude. So yeah, this guy's my hero, and hopefully when I grow up, I get to be just like this guy, because he is absolutely amazing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I nearly got scammed by 2 senior citizens who claimed that I slammed into their car, even though I definitely did not. They even went as far as demanding that I give them $20 for their troubles or else they would sue me, which resulted in one of the weirdest conversations I've probably ever had in my entire life. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I stopped by a gas station today before work, and after I pulled into a parking spot and got out of my car, these 2 old dudes, maybe in their 60s, got out of their car and claimed that I slammed into their car, then pointed at a giant scrape on my front bumper that I got in another accident. I noticed the dude had a huge dent that was obviously already there, and when I pointed out the damage on both cars was obviously already there, he claimed, "Well, yeah, but you made my dent worse." Now, at this point, I really thought he might be joking, because it just seems so ridiculous, because I was 99% sure I definitely did not hit his car. He then started guilting me, saying stuff like, "Well, if it was an expensive car, you'd have a problem. I could try to be nice. I just want you to know that what you did was wrong." And this was all before his friends started saying stuff like, "You should at least slide him $20. It's the right thing to do." I felt like I was being scammed, so I just said, "Have a good day," and I went inside the store. After about a minute, the friend came in and started bothering me in line, saying, "You should give him the $20. It's the least you can do." But I still ignored him and I walked up to the cashier. The cashier asked if I needed anything, and the dude said, "Maybe we need the footage footage because she just slammed into our car. I felt the whole car rattle. The cashier asked if it was true, and I said, no, he's claiming old damage just happened when it didn't. The dude then said to me, well, you should just give us $20 or we'll sue you. So I said, okay, go ahead and sue me. To which he said something under his breath about calling the cops and just walked away and waited by their car. And they didn't even bother me when I left. The part that makes me feel like I could be the jerk is the possibility that maybe I actually did scrape his car, and because I instantly felt like I was being messed with, so I didn't really take it seriously, which would have been a huge jerk move if I somehow did hit his car. But I think I would have noticed if I slammed into it so hard that he would have felt it rattle. The car was also some crapbox 90s sedan that was covered in dents and rust and had no grill. If he wanted to genuinely look at the footage or go through my insurance, we could have talked it out. But the instant guilting and leaving without asking for the footage or my name or anything else makes me feel like they were definitely scammers. So truly, did I avoid getting scammed, or am I the jerk who hit and ran two senior citizens? Because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, those guys were 100% trying to scam you. Like, there's absolutely no question in my mind. Like, seriously, look at the way they were acting. They tried to be like, oh, give us $20. It's the right thing to do. But it's like, dude, you didn't do anything. Because your hunch in this situation is absolutely right. If you hit his car so hard that it would have rattled his car, then guess what? It would have rattled your car too. Because I bet these guys do this to literally anybody they can get in contact with, and that is super awful behavior. Am I the jerk for refusing to split the cost of a rental car after an extra person had joined into our plans even though we didn't intend on bringing them along? Because after I said no, I got forced out of the group, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. About a week ago, my brother's friend, let's call him Adam, mentioned that he was going on a business trip to a big city. He made it clear it wasn't a vacation and said he didn't want anyone tagging along. Well, on New Year's, I went to this city with some friends. My brother, who we will call Eli, couldn't come because of work, though I encouraged him to take a break. But later, I noticed he seemed interested in the city when Adam brought it up again, so I decided to plan another trip, and this time I would be including Eli. And well, he was excited. He took time off and asked if he could bring a couple friends as well. So I agreed and we started planning, and I was going to drive us in my car. We had dates and hotels set, and Adam was not a part of the plan at all. Well, out of nowhere, Eli's other friend, who we will call Marcus, told me that Adam was coming and needed a ride. My car didn't have space, and instead of splitting rides, they suggested that we rent a larger car and split the cost, which would be about $1,000 for 5 days just to make room for Adam, who wasn't even vacationing with us. Well, when they said this, I said no. I didn't think it was fair to take on that extra cost just to accommodate someone who wasn't part of our group, and I made that very clear. The next day, I found out there was a group chat I wasn't even in. Then Marcus messaged me, calling me immature, and Eli texted me seconds later, asking if I was okay with not going. So in the end, I didn't back out, but instead I got pushed out of the trip I planned. So now I'm pretty upset, especially since my own brother was part of it. I didn't make it about money or control. I just didn't want to foot the bill for someone else's business trip. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to split the rental and then getting excluded from the trip I organized? Because right now I'm seriously not sure what to do. Oh man, I can confidently say that if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would be very annoyed by this. You mean to tell me that my brother basically kicked me out of this group trip all because they wanted to include Adam, who literally was not even a part of these like original plans? Like, are you kidding me right now? That's so stupid. And splitting the cost for $1,000 car, like, dude, get an Uber or something. Like, what in the world is happening? Why is getting a larger car even a part of the equation for a trip that you planned? So this is all super silly in my opinion. I think Marcus, Eli, and Adam are all incredibly immature, and I don't think you really missed out on much by backing out and essentially being forced out of this stupid trip. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for wanting my brother-in-law to move out after he's literally overstayed his welcome for over a year? Because right now my husband is saying that his brother-in-law can stay forever if it means he finds a better job. And at this point, I feel like I'm losing my mind and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my brother-in-law moved in with us 3 months after my husband and I got married. My husband offered for him to stay with us because he wanted him to have a place to stay while he went to college in our state. Now, I agreed, assuming that my brother-in-law would go back to his parents a couple of months after college was over, but it's now been a year since he's graduated and he is still living with us. He has a remote part-time job and is trying to look for a better full-time job, but is having a hard time doing that. He's okay about cleaning up after himself, and if he's asked, he will help out around the house. He doesn't contribute financially at all, and he also now has a steady girlfriend who now stays over on the weekends. I kind of feel like the jerk, but I want my house to myself now and not feel like an apartment of some kind. My husband and I have never lived alone together except for maybe 3 months. I also want that for us. I want more privacy. I want to be able to spend time alone together before having kids. I talked to my husband about if he was going to talk to his brother about moving out, and he said that his brother can stay with us for however long it takes for him to get a good job, even if it means forever. My brother-in-law has a very niche degree, and in this economy, I doubt he will ever find a job that can sustain him the way my husband wants him to be. He is also looking for jobs specifically in that field. Anyways, this got us into a little argument, and I think it's the only child energy in me. So am I being the jerk for wanting my brother-in-law to move out with his parents and work remotely from there so that I could have my house and privacy back? I do feel like I am a bit of a jerk because my brother-in-law is a nice kid, but at this point, I'm very frustrated and I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, a year is way too long. Your husband is completely out of line assuming that this is okay. Like, even half a year for me is just way too long. I love my privacy and I love my own space, but also I'm compassionate towards family and I totally get it. Sometimes people fall on hard times and they've got to figure their stuff out. But over a year of staying there and just completely overstaying your welcome is not my version of compassion. That's wearing out your welcome very quickly in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk for wanting him to move out, and I think your husband definitely needs to adjust his attitude towards that, because the fact that he's letting that happen, in my opinion, is just not okay. My idiotic roommate decided to snort the candy I hid in my drawer in my room, as she thought it was something illegal that she could use to have some kind of trip, if you know what I mean. And I'm honestly still blown away that I had to explain any of this to the paramedics that showed up after she freaked out from getting a nosebleed. Here's how it went down. Okay, let me start by saying that I'm not doing any substances, nor have I ever done so. This story happened when I was back in university, and it still gives me chuckles to this day. Now, during university, I had the chance to do a few months at another university. It was far enough away that commuting wasn't an option, so the person in charge of the program put me in touch with a student who was transferring the other way, and we basically agreed to switch living situations. We cleared it with their prospective roommates, and everyone was fine with it. Well, when I arrived, I pretty quickly found out that I didn't like one of the people living there. Let's call this person Karen for the sake of the story. Now, the feeling was mutual, so I basically kept myself busy since it was only a few months. She was the type who got into everyone's business, especially if they didn't want her to. Now, here's a fun fact about me that will be important later on. I love licorice, and you know what? The stronger the better. It's a very specific taste. Some years before all this happened, I figured out how to get my fix without eating a ton of candy, and I would do that by buying ammonium chloride powder, which is also known as salmiak. This, by the way, is also used to make bread crispy, so you can find it in specialized baking stores and online. It is a strong shot, however, it is mildly acidic. I usually just eat what sticks to the tip of my finger, and that's the scale to keep in mind. Now, this is a fine, odorless white powder, and I kept my rations in small 10-gram plastic bags. And if you think you've guessed where this is going, you are probably right. I know Karen saw me eat some once in the beginning of my stay because she asked about it, and I told her it was candy and that she wouldn't like it. Fast forward, and there are about 2 weeks left, and I come back to the place and I notice an ambulance outside. Sure enough, the door to the apartment is open, and 2 paramedics are trying to help Karen stop a nosebleed of horrifying proportions. As soon as she saw me, she started screaming that it was my fault. Paramedics asked me if I know anything about what's going on because Karen claimed that it came out of the blue. So I asked her specifically if she went into my room, found and took my bag of candy, and then tried to sniff it. And you know what? She hesitantly admitted it. I told her, look, it's not that kind of substance, you idiot. It's salmiak. I tell her this, and then I tell the paramedics specifically the chemical name. In the end, she had to go to the emergency room because they weren't sure she hadn't burned a hole in her nasal wall with that stunt. Now, she hadn't, but according to my exchange buddy, she couldn't smell anything for almost 6 months afterwards. And even to this day, she still blames me for all of it going wrong. Oh my gosh, your roommate's an idiot. Seriously, Karen's a moron. She saw a mysterious white powder and said, ooh, I can get this for free. Let's do this. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You have to be a special kind of stupid to do something like that. And then the fact that she tried to be like, this is your fault. It's like, oh yeah, you got me. I'm the reason you sniffed the mysterious white powder you found in my room. Like, that's just hilariously dumb, and it's so astonishing to me that she seriously tried to blame this on you. My coworker is incredibly rude and a massive prima donna to everybody around them. So I decided to put them in their place by humiliating them in front of the entire office. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I'm not very proud of this one, but my god did it work. I used to run a very large team at a very well-known entity publishing articles. I managed the writers, the fact checkers, and the editors, and everyone generally worked really well together. However, there was one writer who was unbearably a prima donna. To be fair, this writer generally did decent work, but could be a sloppy writer and was also a truly horrible person to everyone, berating and trying to belittle anyone that dared question the writer's work. And even the best writer in the world benefits from a good editor, someone who's going going to read what you actually write. It's really hard to check your own writing because you read it as you meant to write it. Now, I spoke to the writer directly numerous times about the appalling behavior. After about the fourth time, I made it clear that team players got priority and bullies got sent to the back of the line and reported to human resources. About 3 days later, the writer submits an article for checking. The initial editor goes back to clarify some things and then gets stomped on hard. So I go to the editor and I say, I'll take this one. And then I put it on my desk at the back of the pile. 30 minutes later, I see the writer yelling at the initial editor, but they respond by saying, sorry, but the original poster's handling it. The writer takes one step over to my desk, stops, and then goes right back to their desk. I finish the pile of work except the writer's piece, timing it just to coincide with a senior management meeting. 2 hours have now gone by before I start on the piece. I send it back to the writer asking for clarification, and then I start work on another piece in the interim, and this writer has to resubmit everything. I finally start on it again, and then send it back again asking for clarification in the next sentence. And then after I start working on another piece, the writer resubmits a second time. And you know what? Right after that, I send it back again, asking for more clarification on the next sentence. And of course, I'm sending a message to the writer's entire team each time. And each time, the team gets to see the writer try to explain what they were trying to say. This lasted most of the afternoon as I went over that piece with a fine-tooth comb, requesting clarification for literally every word in the story, showing in painstaking detail why what they had written didn't work. Well, the writer eventually got the hint, and while the writer was never exactly a sunbeam to work with, we never had to deal with the childish blow-ups ever again. Okay, I love this story because sometimes this is literally what it takes. Sometimes it literally takes a manager or someone higher than them that they can't chew out to show them that their bad attitude is not acceptable. And the way the original poster did this, in my opinion, is so satisfying because this particular kind of coworker is a nightmare to deal with, and I feel so sorry for anyone who got on their bad side. Today, I did something a bit crazy by going above and beyond for nearly a year to prove that this one guy who was flirting with me is just a cheating scum. Here's how I did it. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I know what I did was crazy, but I had an abundance of free time then and I wanted justice. For some backstory, I was going through a very hard breakup. I was with my ex from before online dating and social media blew up. I mean, I was in uncharted waters. Prince Charming came in from my very large workplace where there were about 5,000 workers, and he wanted to be there for me and he was hot. I fell for his love bombing, and before the first real date with the new guy, he eventually disappeared. I mean, he even blocked me on Facebook. We didn't get into a fight or anything like that, so it was really odd. I used a friend's Facebook to see his account, and his girlfriend tagged him in a post. He blocked me so I wouldn't see it, and you know what? I ended up talking to the girlfriend. Well, he was not nice to me for outing him, and that was it. Well, half a year passes, and guess what? He wants me again. He then starts messaging me again, trying to act like a brand new guy. On his social media, he appears single and said that they broke up, but I know for a fact he lied. She saw that we followed each other and then confronted me, and I was completely honest with her. I let her know that nothing happened, but he was trying. And you know what? He lost his mind on me and said lots of very unkind things to me. Fast forward to another half a year later, and I hear they are still dating and he is still cheating. And trust me, work gossip doesn't disappoint at such a large workplace. I created a fake Instagram, I start building up with followers of hers and his, and I'm posting pictures with captions that lead right back to him. I mean, I've been building this Instagram account for months. When the time was right and the girlfriend posted a picture in his bedroom, I commented from the fake account that the picture is in my boyfriend's bedroom. She then messaged me to send her screenshots that I photoshopped between us. And you know what? I'd like to think that I saved this woman. And even to this day, he still tries messaging me every once in a while, even though he doesn't know that I'm the reason he finally got taken down. Okay, I like this for so many reasons, but most of all, the original poster refused to give up until they finally got the revenge that this guy absolutely deserved, and I love that so much. Like seriously, this guy is a cheating scumbag. He deserved to get exposed. So I love the way you did it, and honestly, I love the vigilance, even with the fake Instagram account. Like that, in my opinion, is absolutely brilliant. My coworker walked to my cubicle and interrupted me while I was on a work call, saying that I was being too loud. And right now, I'm kind of feeling humiliated, and I feel like they could have talked to me after my call to let me know that I was being too loud. And at this point, I'm wondering if I might be the jerk. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I work a hybrid position. I'm in the office twice a week, and 3 days a week I'm at home. Admittedly, I can be loud while I'm on a Teams meeting without really knowing it. However, this is something I'm being more mindful of and trying to practice. I was on a work call yesterday that lasted about 8 minutes, and about a few minutes in, a coworker that sits on the opposite side of my cubicle walked around and began tapping on the wall of my cubicle and was asking me if I was on a call. I had my headset on as I only wear my headset when I'm on a call, and Teams was open with my camera on. Now, I have never seen or even spoken to this coworker. I ended up giving her a weird look because I was shocked that someone was interrupting me when I was pretty obviously on a call. I nodded and she said, "You're being too loud, I'm sorry," and then walked away. And I'm not gonna lie, it made me feel pretty humiliated. I haven't had anyone at my job tell me that I'm too loud when I'm talking on a Teams or phone call. I can absolutely understand her frustration. I understand it's distracting if others are speaking loudly. I would have better understood if she had walked over to my cubicle after I got off the call and had told me that I was being too loud and to please keep it down. I felt like it was inappropriate to approach me and say this to me during my call, and that it should have been done afterwards. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because at this point, I don't know how to read the situation. Okay, in my opinion, I definitely think the original poster is the jerk here. They self-admitted that yes, they know they're loud, and chances are the coworker who's never spoken to you before only came over there to say you're being loud because, guess what? You were being too loud. So no, they're not the jerk for saying something, but if anything, you're being the jerk for not doing something to like mitigate the problem. An entitled jerk shoves my 4-year-old son out of the way, all because he was standing in the trail that we were hiking on. But when that happened, I saw red, as I taught this entitled jerk a lesson that he would never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was out for a hike with my son and my dog. It's rainy and slightly windy, but it's just a lovely day to be in the woods. There's bright green needles and leaves against a gray sky, and there's wildflowers bursting up through it all. My son finds a snail on a tree and he is absolutely stoked. We're looking at it, talking about its shell, its slime, as well as what it's doing and why it's there. It's a narrow section of the trail, so we're over on the side, and my dog has her face buried in the bushes. And it's right at that magical moment with me and my son that the entitled jerk of this story comes storming around the corner. I see this guy coming up with his dog, and my son sees a big chocolate lab, so he gets all excited about the big dog, and he happily invites them over to see the snail that he got. My son is standing in the middle of the trail now, and he's looking at this guy and telling him to look at this snail that he got. Now, I'm not sure what my son was gonna say next, but this entitled jerk actually pushes my son out of the way. Mind you, my son is 4 years old, and he's literally asking this guy to see a snail that he found on a trail on a Sunday morning. Now, when that happened, I immediately blocked his way. I looked at him and I said, "You need to apologize to my son right now." This entitled jerk looks me in the eye and says,
"He can't just be standing in the middle of the trail."
And when I say I saw red, I am being completely serious. I got a little bit closer and I spoke more clearly. I said to him, "You pushed my son, apologize right now." When I said that, I'm pretty sure this guy was not ready for this level of confrontation, so he immediately backs down. He mumbles an apology and then takes off as fast as his stupid legs can possibly move. And it makes me wonder, does this guy like own the trail for some reason? I mean, where is he going that he can't politely ask a child to move? What is so pressing that he can't wait for a child to move out of his way? I'm honestly so astonished by this guy's entitlement, and he better hope he never sees me on that trail ever again. Yeah, that guy had some serious nerve to push your kid out of the way on a trail. Like seriously, what is wrong with some people? Like there is a myriad of different responses this guy could have made to this kid being like, "Oh look, I've got a snail." He could have just kept walking and said, "Oh, that's cool, buddy, but I'm in a hurry." Or he could have stopped and humored the kid like any normal person would. But to literally push him out of the way like that is crazy to me, and there is no good excuse for that. But in the end, I love the way the original poster reacted, because that's exactly how I would have reacted. If I had my son on this awesome hike and he found a really cool snail and he was trying to show somebody, and then that person pushed my son out of the way, I think I would have gone bananas. Like there's no way I would let that slide. So good for the original poster for standing up for their son, because this entitled jerk clearly was used to getting away with toxic stuff like that. And it's about time that they realize that their actions are definitely going to have consequences. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend gets mad anytime I spend money, and has even gone as far as calling me a parasite anytime we get in an argument. And right now, I'm very hurt and very confused, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been together for 3 years, with plans to get married and save for a home, although we currently maintain separate residences. I relocated to be closer to her, moving 30 minutes away from my workplace. Previously, I lived in the city without a car, which necessitated her driving to see me. Anticipating that we'd spend a lot of time at my place as we had before, I rented a large luxury apartment. However, we ended up spending more time at her condo condo. We've agreed I'll move into her condo once my lease is up, as we continue to primarily stay at her place. Now, we've reached some agreements, such as moving my furniture into her condo, and my cat has essentially made it her home as well. Nonetheless, when my girlfriend becomes upset, her attitude towards me staying at her place fluctuates. Mostly she is welcoming, and other times, she uses it as leverage during conflicts. She tells me to take my belongings and move out, and calls me a parasite, accusing me of being financially dependent on her. This situation is quite stressful and unsettling for me, and despite earning twice as much as my girlfriend, I'm facing accusations of financial dependency, which only adds significant stress about expenses. She points out that I'll never be able to save enough for a house, and frequently mentions that I don't contribute for rent or utilities. But then she forgets about my other expenses. For example, just the other day, I purchased her a business ticket worth about 4 months of her mortgage. She criticizes my spending habits, even for essential expenses like medications, or even meals during work, or when I need to work from a coffee shop. This creates a challenging environment where financial contributions and personal spending become sources of contention rather than a cooperative discussion. I've tried to address these issues openly and constructively, pointing out that our decisions have been made jointly, and I've even explained how it was essentially her decision that I continue to lease out my apartment. Right now, I'm scheduled to move in with her in the next few days, and we've agreed to have our own expenses just so our fight over our finances can finally come to an end. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you are absolutely not the jerk. Your girlfriend is calling you a parasite. Like literally, what is she doing? Like, does she just not want you to move in with her or what? It seems like anytime there's some kind of fight between the two of you, she's the first one to try and turn it on you and be like, wow, you're depending on me financially. You're just a parasite. Like that, in my opinion, is a giant red flag, and that is not something I would ignore. Like that would even make me question wanting to move in with her in the first place. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think you really haven't done anything wrong besides spend your own money, because the way she's acting is absolutely inappropriate, and you do not deserve that kind of treatment in the slightest. My entitled brother and his family moved into the house that we're renting and refused to pay for their half of the rent. So my family and I moved out of that house, but now my parents and my brother are calling me a jerk for not helping out. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I rented my parents' house after they retired and moved south. I paid slightly below market rate, and the plan was for me to save up and eventually buy the house at a great price. They would then give that money to my brother as his part of their estate, and my share was the subsidized rent and the very subsidized purchase agreement. And you know what? Everybody thought this was fair. That is, until my brother's wife started running up debts that they couldn't cover. This led to them losing their home and needing help. Now, I love my brother and my nephews, so when my mom asked me if they could move in, I talked to my husband and we agreed. We are in the process of adopting 2 siblings, but we are still not there. And this was only going to be temporary, so why not? Half off the rent for a few months would totally help us with the down payments and expenses. They moved in February, and when March rolled around, I transferred my half of the usual rent to my parents. But my mom then called us back asking me where the rest of it was. I said that I was assuming my brother was paying for the other half, but nope, that definitely did not happen. I had to pay for all of the rent. I asked why I had to pay for them to stay in my house, and my mom said that it wasn't my house yet and that I was being mouthy. And it was right then that I saw the writing on the wall. I paid the rent and I started looking. We had a good amount saved up, and we didn't need a big old house with lots of maintenance issues that we had been handling. We ended up paying the full rent in April as well, but we moved out and into the house that we closed on, and this was ready for immediate possession. With my husband and I having decent income and 25% down, it all went really smoothly. The only downside is the much smaller yard, but it is a block away from a public park, so we aren't losing that much. Now, I did tell my parents we were leaving. Well, on May 1st, I got another call from my mom, and she wanted the rent, but I said I wasn't living there any longer. She said that I was breaking our deal, but I said that our deal never included me paying for my brother's living expenses. She then said that they couldn't afford to cover the mortgage without my rent, but I told her to get the money from my brother as he was still working. She said that he was still paying his debts, but I said that his wife should also get a job to maybe help out. Well, to make a long story short, she said I was being cheap and vicious to my brother and to my parents. We are settling into our new house, and for now we are just ignoring them. But I'm honestly wondering if maybe I'm in the wrong, because right now I'm seriously not sure. No, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, you did not sign up to pay for everybody's rent at that house, and you obviously let them in to be a good person and try and help them out. Like, that is your brother after all. So the fact that they took advantage of you and basically said, oh yeah, you're gonna pay for everything, like, that really is unfair, and that really throws you under the bus. So if I was in your shoes, I would have moved out as well. The way you're getting treated is completely unfair, and I don't blame you for getting out of there while you could. My stepdad demands that I lie to my mom when it comes to how I feel about my step-siblings, simply because my mom is unhappy, and that if I lie, I'm gonna make my mom happy again and things will be okay. But when I said no, my stepdad called me selfish, and right now it has me questioning everything, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female, and when I was 10 years old, I lost my dad. My parents were in a transitional period, as my mom's parents called it, and this was in the weeks prior to his passing. And what I think that means is that they were trying to figure out how to divorce without messing me up. But I thought it was pretty clear my parents' relationship was done. They hadn't seemed happy in so long, and I don't remember them being affectionate with each other. Within a year of my dad passing away, my mom met a guy that we will call Harvey, and they were dating for 2 years when she introduced me to him. Now, he seemed okay, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have my mom dating someone. But overall, it was pretty fine. Mom asked me what I thought, and I told her that he seemed okay and that she was really happy, which was really nice. She asked me if I thought he'd make a good bonus dad, and I told her I hated how that sounded. We talked things over, and she admitted that she wanted to pick someone I could see being the new father figure in my life. She said it didn't have to be an only dad thing, but even if I love someone enough to think of them as a second dad. I told her that wouldn't happen, but I'd be fine with Harvey sticking around and being married to her if she wanted that. We went to therapy, and Harvey eventually joined us, and by the time we were done, I was almost 15 years old, and they were married, and mom was pregnant. My mom had 2 kids in the last 18 months. My half-brother is 17 months old, and my half-sister is 3 months old. Things were kind of crazy when my half-brother was born, so mom didn't do any kind of party or celebration of his birth. Since she and Harvey made sure they won't have any more kids, my mom decided to throw a party to celebrate the kids being born. So this is probably where I should say that I'm pretty indifferent to the babies. I know they are technically my half-siblings, but I don't really feel anything towards them. Honestly, it makes me sad that I was the only kids my parents had together, because I think it would have been nice to have someone who's been there with me, especially through my parents' relationship breakdown, my father passing away, and my mom remarrying and starting a family with Harvey. But I just don't see my half-siblings the way I imagine seeing a full sibling, because we only share one parent. I'm also so much older than them, and our experiences will always be so different. I don't hate them, but I honestly can't say that I love them either. During the party for the babies, I got kind of tired of faking being happy and enthusiastic about it, so I went upstairs for a while and was talking to my best friend. Well, apparently my mom overheard, and she talked to Harvey afterwards and was absolutely devastated because she has realized I don't feel all warm and fuzzy about the babies, and I'm not really happy to have half-siblings. She realized that I do see them as half-siblings, quite literally, and that hurt her a lot because she assumed that I would see them as full siblings. Harvey told me that mom found out, and he told me to lie to her just so mom would think that she misunderstood, also that she could go back to being happy again. But when I said no, I'm not gonna do that, he told me that I'm being so selfish. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for not wanting to lie? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I simply don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, it is incredibly weird that Harvey's trying to make you lie to your mom. Like, for reference, the original poster is a teenager, and in my opinion, I think the way he's going about doing this is completely inappropriate. Like, I really think you're entitled to your own feelings. There is so much to unpack here, and honestly, it's just not fair for him to be like, oh, just lie to her. We want her to be happy right now. It's like, what are you doing? That is so unfair. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think it's incredibly inappropriate for Harvey to try and make you lie. That, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for, and I think that you are in the right for standing up for yourself. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I will never forgive him for missing my high school graduation just so he can go to another event that his stepdaughter is taking place in? Because right now, I am hurt once again that he's choosing her over me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and I'm graduating high school at the end of this month, and my dad dropped some awful news on me 2 nights ago that his stepdaughter, who's 14 years old, has an award ceremony for some competition that she entered and won in another state, which happens to be on the exact same day that I'm getting graduated, while saying that she wants him to be there in person. He told me he couldn't possibly make it to both, and and since his wife and their children together will be going, he needs to be there too. He told me he would make it up to me and we would celebrate another time. Now, I still live with him, but not for much longer, and my mom passed away when I was 7, and my dad got married again when I was 11 or 12 years old, so it's been a few years as it is. His stepdaughter never knew her biological dad, so my dad has accepted her as his own, and he has prioritized her a lot in the last 5 to 6 years. It doesn't always show in the most obvious ways, but it can seriously be felt. Our father-son time was put on an indefinite hiatus, and instead, Dad told me we needed to include her in our time together, but he also spent time with just her on father-daughter time. I brought it up to my dad, and he told me I wasn't exactly making an effort to be closer to her, so he wanted all of us to bond and didn't want me to just focus on my relationship with him. He has attended her dance recitals instead of my basketball games if they're on the same time. It doesn't matter if mine was known about it first. He will still skip my stuff to go to hers. He will take us on family days, and whenever he and his wife say the kids can choose what they want to do, he picks her choices over mine. He claims it's because they will be the most fun for everybody, but really, he even says it afterwards, anything his little princess wants is what she gets. Our refrigerator and our shower broke at the same time, and his stepdaughter's birthday was coming up, so he took money from my birthday fund just to pay for that stuff, and so his stepdaughter would definitely get what she wanted. For reference, she got this Barbie house thing, as well as a whole fashion set, and I'm pretty sure it cost well over $250. He didn't get all the money back by the time my birthday came around, so instead, he gave me a $30 gift card for Steam when he had promised me a new monitor and keyboard for my computer. And by the way, the computer was a gift from my grandparents. Now, when my dad said he wasn't going to be at my graduation, but instead he was going to go and support her, I told him straight up that there is no way he could ever make up for that, and he can absolutely forget about being included in my life going forward. He told me that he would make it up to me, but I told him I will always come second to his little princess, and I am not going to be okay with that. I told him he's discarded me for the last time. Now, my dad begged me to be reasonable, but I just walked away. Then I invited both sets of grandparents to my graduation, who thankfully agreed to come along. His wife told me that I could have come along with them, and that I don't really need to attend the ceremony, but I could instead support my sister. I said that her daughter's not my sister, and I do not want to support their family anymore, because I'm going to be out of their hair really soon. When I said that, she called me selfish and told me that I can't deny her daughter a dad. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, and you're definitely not overreacting. Graduating from high school is a massive milestone. The fact that your dad wants to go out of state to do another thing that his daughter wants to do, in my opinion, especially compared to this, is completely wrong. Like, this really is not okay, and I don't blame you for being upset. Like, just think about it for a second. His dad has completely neglected him on everything ever since he got married again. And like, I totally understand that he wants to have some kind of relationship with his new stepdaughter, but for him to completely ignore his older son and be like, oh, we've got to work together as a family, like, that is just a cop-out to never do anything his son ever wants to do. Like, it literally seems like there's no compromise when it comes to your stepsister stuff, but instead they always pick her stuff over you. So to that end, I'm so sorry you're dealing with that, but in my opinion, I don't think you're in the wrong, and I think your dad is absolutely making a mistake by going out of state instead of going to your graduation. Am I the jerk for not letting my sister and her kids live in my house simply because it would be too many people and we just don't have the room? Because right now, after I said no, my sister is bad-mouthing me online, turning the entire family against me and making my life a living nightmare. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I'm an electrician. I started my apprenticeship at 17 years old and was hired immediately by my sponsor after I received my license. The reason I chose a trade was that I grew up in a trailer with my mom and my sister, and I have wanted to own my own house since I can remember. And being in the trades gave me access to a stable job and access to more money sooner. My partner, who is 29 years old, she is a plumber and we have saved a lot of money. In the end, we bought land and built a tiny house in the uptown area of our city. It has 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and one of our bathrooms is a reptile room, since I keep snakes and my partner keeps bearded dragons. We are also child-free and very happy in our home. Now, my sister is a waitress and has 3 kids. Her husband just left her for a woman my age, and she is left without his income to raise all 3 of her kids on her own. Her husband bought out her half of the house during the divorce, and that left her and the kids living with my mom in the trailer. I I can admit I didn't grow up in the safest of areas and was carrying some form of protection with me when I was a teenager because there was a lot of danger. Now, because of the safety issues, my sister came to my partner and I and begged us to let her and her sons move in. She said we would have to get rid of our reptiles to keep them in our room, her sons could have the other bedroom, and she would sleep in our kitchen on an air mattress. She said nothing about paying rent or helping around the house. Well, when she said all this, I told her no, because 2 toddlers and a little kid who's about to start kindergarten are not suitable to be in our home, and we don't want too many people in our house. She said that we live in a better part of town with better schools, and that she definitely needed the help. I told her we didn't have the room and that I was sorry, but I told her I could hook her up with some journeymen that I know, and she could get started on an apprenticeship that pays better than her current job if she needed extra money. Well, she called my job and my partner's job dirty blue-collar trash, and then she left our home. She then posted online about how we wouldn't let her stay at our house, and now my relatives are messaging me about it. They're asking me how I could let a single mother and 3 kids be homeless, and how they're my blood and that I owe my sister better than this. Now, I feel like a complete jerk, even though my partner told me that I have every right to not want them in our house. So seriously, am I the jerk for not wanting my sister and her kids in my home? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you made the best choice for you and your partner, as it doesn't sound like your house is very big in the slightest. Like, she's not only barking orders at you of like moving your lizards and your snakes around, but also being like, oh yeah, my kids will take the other room and I'll sleep in the kitchen on an air mattress. And it's almost like she wasn't asking if she could do that, but rather telling you that this is what's gonna happen. Like, personally, that would have rubbed me the wrong way, but also it doesn't seem like there's any room for that kind of activity. Like, this is a tiny house and then suddenly there's gonna be 4 more people in this house. Like, that's not gonna work in the slightest, and I don't blame you for saying no. Plus, just look at how she reacted when you told her no. She said that you have dirty blue-collar trash jobs, and then makes you the villain when you say no to her demands. That behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and I don't think that you did anything wrong. An entitled jerk nearly cost me my job after he does some shady business practices that somehow fall on my back. So I decided to get some revenge by investigating his previous jobs, and as a result, I exposed him for committing nearly $1 million worth of fraud to his customer base. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at somebody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm going to keep this intentionally vague because this has been a complex situation that requires a lot of backstory. I'm a 29-year-old male, and I own a specialized equipment cleaning and maintenance company. I've been running the company for the past 12 years. I take great pride in my work, and I run an honest business. We service everything from government facilities to small mom-and-pop operations, and I try to make everything clear, transparent, and honestly priced as possible. For the last 10 years, I've had a great relationship with a company that we will simply call the Big Company. Now, this Big Company is a service provider, which is something of a middleman actually in my industry, and they contract me to service roughly 35% of their customer base, and we have grown to have a mutual respect for one another, and they are probably my largest customer. Well, roughly 2 years ago, the Big Company brought on another service provider to contract, which is owned by a shady businessman. This shady jerk claims that he has many different skills and credentials, and handles a lot of the more maintenance and installation side of things for the Big Company. I often do follow-up work at businesses that he's done installs at, and trust me, it's not good. There's improperly installed equipment, there's crazy repairs and electrical work that just doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's horrible. Talking to customer after customer, I find that he's taking advantage of their mechanical ignorance, upcharging 400% the price of parts, and even charging double, if not triple, the usual going hourly rate for this kind of work. For example, a $300 part that would take 2 hours to install, he's charging $1,500 just for the part, and another $1,500 for the labor. I mean, this is insane behavior. I mention it to the Big Company, and they tell me that he's such a knowledgeable and experienced guy that usually those kinds of guys come at a premium. So I think to myself, whatever, I'm just gonna leave it be and stay in my lane. Well, fast forward to about a year, which is right about the time that my troubles start. I get a call from the owner of the Big Company telling me that we have a new account and that they are a little bit more complicated and a little out of our warehouse. They then ask me if I can please take the account. I say to them, sure, and within a week I'm down at the account doing a cleaning and maintenance. The type of system that they have is a bit more complicated, but I'm very experienced and familiar with these systems, so it's not really an issue. Well, or so I thought. I go to start everything up, and the system isn't turning going on properly. The owner comes in and says, "Hey, we're gonna have to start operations in a little over an hour. Are we good to go?" I tell him, "Well, the system seems to not want to start. I'm gonna try and track down the issue and we should be good to go." He gives me a frustrated huff and then he leaves the room. 15 minutes later, I get a call from the shady businessman. He asks me if I'm on the account that I'm currently at, and when I say yes, he says to me that the owner wants me to stop work immediately and head out, claiming that he's going to be coming down there to take over. Now, the owner comes back in the room and confirms exactly this. He says to me, "Hey, we're like 45 minutes from open, and we've used the shady businessman in the past, and we just need to get the system going, so we're going to use him." So I say to myself, sure, and then I just take off. Well, fast forward and a few days go by, and I get a call from the account. They tell me I'm going to need to call my insurance and file a claim. They say that their system is broken. It needs a new motor, which is going to be about $58,000 just to repair. We go back and forth for a while with me trying to figure out what they're talking about, and they're adamant that I broke this system on the word of the shady businessman. The owner then said that I need to call the insurance or I would see them in court. So I call up my insurance, and they're specific to my industry and have specialists that know the ins and outs of this job. I tell their expert every step I performed in my work, and they say there's no way I damaged the motor, but they'll take care of everything that goes on. A little while later, I get a call from the shady businessman. He says to me, "Hey man, I'm sorry, it wasn't meant to be you." I ask him, "What are you talking about?" He then says to me, "Well, to be honest, I had done a lot of installation work for this company like 6 months back, and they owe me like $12,000. I figured if their system wasn't working, they'd call me in a pinch and have to pay me the money they owe me to get me down there. Plus, I'd have some guaranteed work doing the repairs on their system. It was supposed to be one of the big company guys though, and not you, so sorry about that." Now, when this guy said that, I was livid. This guy basically set up a trap in the system so that when it was being taken apart, the release of this sensor would short the motor. I try everything I can to get him to admit it again, or even text me or email me, or at least say it on the phone, since anything now that I'm collecting is just straight up evidence, but he doesn't fall for it and doesn't say anything further. So I call up my insurance and I tell them exactly what happened. They say they'll get everything taken care of, and honestly, that's all I can do. I tell the account, which is a pretty small business, and trust me, they're just as livid as I am. See, the thing is, the shady businessman is a smooth talker. He makes up a lot of complicated stuff the customer just doesn't understand, and they just think he's the smartest guy around. So far, he's cost this small business nearly $70,000 in unnecessary work. I then warn off my customer base from this guy and try to get word around in the industry a little bit, but it's also hard to do, especially while seeing some bitter dude without any evidence trying to blame shift. 4 months go by, and I get a call from the account's insurance. It's a standard business insurance, and the agent on the other line is a complete jerk. Apparently, he worked in the industry for a short while and considers himself an expert. So imagine a surgeon getting lectured by someone that took an anatomy class one time. This guy was so obnoxious. He's telling me that I need to get a different insurance company because my insurance is garbage. They've denied the claim because they're claiming it's not my fault, and anyone with half a brain can figure out that I'm at fault. I explain the situation to him, and he just thinks I'm some dude trying to avoid accountability. They've paid out $58,000 for repairs on this system, and they want me to pay $1,000 for the customer's deductible, claiming that this is non-negotiable. Either pay up or I will see them in court. Now, at this point, I'm so over this situation, so I just pay the $1,000 and move on. Well, that same day that I'm picking up supplies from a warehouse, I run into the big company's owner and the owner of an even bigger company that I've been trying to pick up as a customer. We get to talking and I tell them about the insurance call I got. I explain the backstory just a little bit more, and their faces both go pale. Apparently, they've both been using this shady businessman, and they've been having all kinds of issues, but he's such a smooth talker that they've never connected it to him. They begin telling me all the issues they've been having at their different locations, and this is everything from electrical problems to some state-of-the-art equipment that was installed by this guy that created a whole slew of problems that, surprise, surprise, only he could fix. Now, at this point, they're curious if I can take over handling his role for them. They want to cut complete ties with him, so I tell them certainly. I've expanded what my business can cover, and we can definitely take over the backlog of work this shady businessman has waiting for him. The next day, they both send me lists of all the work they're waiting on him to do, and one by one, I start putting together quotes for each job. The list they sent me has this shady businessman's existing quote figures on there, and I'm finding that most every quote I'm putting together is half, if not the quarter of the price, and that's being generous to my own wallet. Some jobs include fees for things that sound complicated, but they are just made-up terminology. One job, for example, he has upcharged the equipment cost from $75 for the part all the way up to $600, and he's also charging $1,800 in labor for one man with a 2-hour install, and has added an additional hazard material charge, which is not at all a thing we do for this job. And that charge alone is $1,200. So we're talking a $3,600 total to a little mom and pop brick and mortar, but then I step in and drop the material down to $75, the labor down to $600, and drop the hazmat removal entirely. So they went from $3,600 all the way down to $675 only. Now, we are so specialized that really there's only a few of us in the state, and this mom and pop felt like they had no choice. On another job, this guy was trying to charge $15,000 in labor for something that literally one guy could have done, plus an additional mileage fee of $400, despite the fact that this guy lives 10 miles away. He also put down a material transportation fee which doesn't even exist. Like, the 6 parts that he was bringing to this job could have fit inside of my backpack. Overall, for this job that I took over, the shady businessman was trying to charge $20,000 for it, but I ended up only charging $3,000 for it. And this is another small business trying to open a second location, and this guy is being so shady and sketchy with his pricing. He's going to drive them out of business as they're trying to take a leap and open a second location. It's honestly so heartbreaking. All in all, after I priced everything out, he had bid out a little over $1 million in work for himself over the next 6 months that I got down to just over $280,000. And I simply could not believe that this is the way he was pricing things. The new customers that I've inherited have all been so grateful and gotten me connected with even more work in just a short while. And I've easily doubled my business as a result of this over such a short time. On the other end of things, the shady businessman is apparently not doing well. These smaller businesses have some sort of Facebook group that word has been going around to not use him, and has gotten to the bigger businesses and corporations, and now his credentials have been exposed as completely bogus. Businesses that he was doing work for, as well as big household names, are calling me to take over as their local provider, and it really is just the start. So I genuinely hope people start taking legal action against this guy, because taking advantage of businesses often struggling to get help simply because you want some money is incredibly toxic, and this guy absolutely deserves to get shut down. Wow, that is so sketchy. It's crazy to me that someone would actually try to charge these kinds of prices and still think that they can get away with it, especially in front of someone like the original poster. Like, obviously they know what they're doing, and they obviously know how to price things correctly. So for them to literally shave off $800,000 from the original price, that's an insane markup from this shady businessman, and it is so toxic that he did this to small businesses that are already probably struggling in some way. So good for the original poster for setting things right, as well as improving their business all off the back of this shady jerk. And hopefully karma can work its magic by getting this guy in the trouble that he absolutely deserves. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen and her husband cuss me out and call me horrible names after they don't get exactly what they want at the car rental shop I was working at. And as a result, they not only got banned from renting from our location, but they also got permanently banned from our company nationwide. Here's what happened. So I was working my shift at a car rental company at our local airport and was helping a customer with swapping a vehicle that he was having an issue with when a group of elderly entitled jerks walks past the customer service booth and out onto our parking lot. There are 2 rental brands owned by the same company on the lot, and there's one that's more of like a hand-holding experience, while the other is more of a self-service concept. So generally, you don't have to stop if you know where you're going. So I assumed, wrongly of course, that this was the latter group of clientele. Another group did what you do when you are unsure of what to do and approached the nearest and only employee working on the lot at the moment just to ask for some kind of directions. The customer I was originally helping graciously told me he was in no rush and to go ahead and help this other group. So I say to myself, awesome, that's easy. It will only take a second, so I get them moving. Sure enough, as I point the way over to the lanes where they can pick up vehicles from, this entitled Karen comes storming up to me with a wad of paper in her hand. I ask her if she needs help with something, and she says to me, waving the papers in front of me, "Our reservation
reservation says skip the counter and go out to the lot, but there are no cars parked out there with the brand we reserved.
I say to her, yes ma'am, generally we do try to consolidate during low volume days, so you don't have to walk as far to get to the vehicle. Do you mind if I look at your reservation so I can get you all pointed in the right direction? The entitled Karen begrudgingly hands me the confirmation papers, and sure enough, as is typical with this method of doing things, the pages they printed list everything except what size vehicle they booked. She continued to tell me about how our business is supposed to be run, as if I don't have 3 years of experience doing it. And as I finish flipping the pages after finding a reservation number, I begin to say that I'll be happy to check this out, but she interrupted that by angrily snatching the papers out of my hand. Now, while you might not think it, some of these places are very corporate environments, and there is very little room for aggressive behavior. So this was definitely strike one. I very quickly dropped my higher-pitched, quirky customer service voice for my serious voice by saying, ma'am, I need you to relax. But when I said that, this is when she started swearing at me while talking about, yet again, how cars are not where she wanted them to be. At this point, I started waving my hands side to side, and I tell her, yeah, at this point, we will not be renting you a vehicle. I will go ahead and be canceling your reservation for you. She looks at me and says, you can tell my husband. But I just say, okay, go ahead. Her husband arrives shortly after her and asks, okay, what's happening? I say to him, sir, your wife has been aggressive and swearing at me, so you will not be renting a car with us this evening, and I'm now gonna have to ask you to leave my lot. He looks at me and says, wait, come on, there has to be something we could do. I say to them, you can head back inside because you will not be renting anything from us this evening. While the men headed inside, this entitled Karen stayed behind. She was asking me, what's your name? I'm gonna leave you a bad review. But I look at her and I say, I'll do you one better. Here's my business card. The entitled Karen looks at me and says, thanks, I'll make sure to tell everybody that you're an absolute jerk. And when she says that, I think to myself, nice, she's doubling down. I think I'll do the exact same thing. As she snatches the card from me, I begin to walk past her to get the reservation sheet from her husband. She shouts at me, don't you touch me. But I respond back by saying, no one is trying to touch you. Sir, I need to borrow that sheet of paper from you. All of you will be going on our do not rent list. Now, he ignored me while the three of them walked away, but I decided not to further escalate the situation, but I definitely knew that this was not over yet. Now, here's where it gets outrageously stupid. The cell towers near the airport have been down the past week, and normally I would send a text message notifying my staff about if there was anyone we could not be able to rent to for whatever reason, but because of the cell towers, I couldn't do it. The other manager came back from his lunch break, and I was able to quickly tell him I got cussed out, all before getting back to guiding people to their cars. And while I was about 30 feet away, I turn around and just take a guess of who you think I see walking around the parking lot. Yeah, that's right. I see the 3 people I just turned away for their bad behavior issues. I jog over to the other manager and I let him know that those were the people I turned down and point out the lady who chose violence. So I turn and jog after them. I say to them, hey, we just had this conversation. You are not renting here. The husband replies by saying, I already paid at the counter. You have my money. We're taking this SUV and we're leaving. I said to him, well, I'll gladly refund your money, but you are not leaving here in one of our cars. Get your belongings and get out. Now, the entire time, the wife sat in the back seat, glaring at me like it was my fault that she cannot control herself, while the third man who was with them looked really sad. He ended up approaching me in a last-ditch effort, and I truly really felt for this guy. He had cancer and wanted to go to his niece's graduation, and they would be back in 2 days, but they just needed some help getting there. And you know what? I wanted to help him. I really did. But like I said, it's a corporate environment. You cannot be aggressive and you cannot cuss me or my staff out before you even actually become my customer, and then still try to get into a vehicle. All that's gonna get you is reported to our risk department, which is pretty rough because being labeled as an adverse risk means that you cannot rent with our car rental brand, which is, for many insurance carriers, the #1 choice for insurance replacement when you're in an accident, and many insurance companies do not have a second option. Also, unfortunately for the first man and woman who narrowly avoided being added to that list when they walked out the first time, I now had access to their reservation with their complete driver's license attached. So honestly, any consequences that have come their way are quite literally their own fault. Wow, this is incredible. Not only did they get denied service, but they also got banned from that brand across the nation. Like seriously, this is exactly what they deserve. You can't just treat people like garbage, try to double down on what you're gonna do to these people in their jobs, and then be like, oh my god, what's happening? Why are you banning us? Like that's some really convenient amnesia there, Karen. Where was this sensibility when you were cussing out that person at the front front desk. So you know what? In my opinion, they got exactly what they deserved. Because all they needed to do was be reasonable and patient with the front desk worker. And if they had done that, then all of this could have gone away and they could have seen their niece one last time. Am I the jerk for not helping my ex-girlfriend in a time of need? Simply because of the way she was acting. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, me and my ex split up a couple of days ago after a year-long relationship. We met at work and we are co-workers right now, and with the both of us being expats in a European country, we quickly developed an interest in each other and began dating. However, our relationship was tumultuous. She comes from an awful background, leading to untreated conditions such as PTSD and anger management issues. On our last day together, following one of our frequent arguments, she left for her place and texted me declaring she wanted no further contact even at work. Well, a few days later, I received a message from her on our work chat telling me that she needs my help like never before. This is an emergency. Now, I was away from my desk at the time, so I replied later somewhat distantly, stating that I was busy at the moment, but I could assist her later on the following day. She responded that she had lost all her money in a scam call and she was panicking, unsure of what to do. But I reminded her of her previous request for no contact. Well, she then followed this by launching into a rage panic attack, blaming me for her loss, suggesting that if I had just responded promptly, she might have avoided the scam altogether, while finally resorting to name-calling. Now, it's important to know that I've helped her through the entire course of the relationship in all of her issues, but she always responds by saying that I've never done anything to help her, which is just completely outrageous. Nevertheless, I agreed to meet her to address the immediate problem, on the one condition that we would focus solely on finding a solution and nothing else. So I rearranged my schedule, leaving work early, and drove to meet her. Upon meeting up with her, she began complaining about never having anyone to help her in times of need, which I just chose to ignore and started calmly outlining the available options. You know, stuff like reporting it to the police or the bank. So I accompanied her to the police station just so she would have someone familiar next to her. When the officer listened to the description of the story, he went to his office to draft a report, leaving us alone in the waiting room. Well, instantly she goes into trigger mode. She starts shouting, "When I say it's an emergency, you should react fast, and that's kind of your fault now. No matter what I've told you, now is way different." Now, here's the thing. She didn't acknowledge at any point that I was there trying to help, nor said that she was sorry for anything that she said. My reaction to her comments was to remind her that since she thinks that she deserves better people around her, she should have called them to help her out. She then responded by saying, "I did, but no one answered, which is why I called you." Things finally got to the roof for her, where she accused me again that this is kind of my fault, in which my reaction was to get my jacket and just straight up leave. Hours later, I received dozens of messages on how I'm a huge jerk and that I should have never done that to her and that she wishes me the worst. So seriously, am I at fault in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and if anything, I can kind of see why this relationship didn't work out. Like her attitude when you finally do show up and help her out, all she does is blame you and be like, wow, this is your fault. So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have walked out as well, because the way she was acting was completely inappropriate. My entitled toxic coworker is constantly trying to get me in trouble with my boss, as she is constantly complaining about how I do my job, and has even gone as far as taking secret photos of me that she is sharing with my boss just to try and prove that I'm not doing my job. And now I feel completely overwhelmed and I'm considering quitting my job, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I started what I thought was my dream job in December. It was honestly amazing until about a month ago, when I was switched to working closely with another coworker who we will call Janice. Janice is not her real name. She very quickly started having problems with the job I was doing. For example, she would get upset about me not cleaning something thorough enough, or not maintaining our assigned area to her standards, which she never even communicated to me, by the way, as well as a variety of miscommunications, such as when she told me that she was going to take care of a task, and I didn't realize that she actually wanted me to help her finish up after I was done with what I was doing. Janice never directly told me that she was upset, but instead, I just got pulled into a meeting one day with my boss, and he told me everything that was going on. And honestly, I was a bit blindsided by this, as I thought I was doing a good job up until that point, and she had given me no indication that she was unhappy with the job I was doing. To be completely fair, a lot of these concerns were legitimate criticisms, which I have done my best to learn from and not repeat those mistakes. However, Janice has since started reporting every imperfection in my work to my boss. Some of these issues have included an area getting dirty again, which is faster than she thought it should after I cleaned it up. And I even asked her if it was good when I was done, and she said yes. And she also just keeps complaining about stuff being dirty or not up to her standards. And just to be clear, I am constantly checking in with her whenever we are working together, asking if I had done things correctly or if she would rather I do things differently, and she always told me that I was good. Last week, I was working with one of my coworkers who we will call Carl, who is also fairly new, but has been here slightly longer than I have, and I was working with him on a large project that involved heavy lifting outside on a hot day. For reference, we live in Florida, so it's already pretty warm here. After working for a little over an hour, we took a breather to go to the bathroom and drink some water. Now, this was all during one of the allotted break times that we are all entitled to, and it couldn't have taken us longer than 15 minutes. While drinking water and making small talk, we noticed Janice stick her head around the corner, hold up her phone, and take a picture of us. She did this again about 5 minutes later, after which we decided to cut our break short. She wasn't even trying to hide it or anything. It was almost like she waited for us to stop working just so she could take pictures of us slacking off. I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm so terrified to stop working for even a second. I'm scared to go to the bathroom except on my lunch break. In fact, whenever I'm left to work in private, I just break down in tears because I'm so stressed by this pressure to be perfect. Some of my other coworkers have started treating me differently than before, simply because they know that Janice doesn't like me. Carl reported the picture taking to our boss, but I don't think anything will come of it because Janice has been here for so long. She's practically untouchable. I've started applying to some other jobs, but leaving this job would be a huge step backwards in my career and would also mean a pay cut that I haven't budgeted for. I guess I just want to know if all of these things are just normal bumps in the road that will eventually pass, or if I should start making my exit plan, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, Janice is a very toxic coworker. She's clearly trying to get you in trouble, and she obviously feels threatened by you in some kind of way. And she's obviously trying to get you fired or in trouble with management, and I can guarantee you if you continue to say nothing, then this kind of behavior will keep going. Like, she's not going to stop anytime soon. She is going to keep taking secret photos of you, and she's going to do everything she can to make your life a living nightmare. Like, she basically has you wrapped around her finger. You are literally under her thumb for cleaning things up and doing things perfectly, but she is not your boss. You don't have to do all that. She's only doing that so she can have some kind of control over your employment. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would quit my job. I would go to my boss and tell them immediately what's going on, and then I would keep going until this behavior stops. Like, she can't just follow you around and take pictures of you instead of doing her own job. And when you say that she's untouchable because she's been there so long, trust me, that means nothing when she's doing something like this. I've learned in my own life that anybody can be fired for literally any reason. I mean, I've seen people who have worked for a company for like, 20 years get fired the next day because of a mess up? Like, she is not untouchable. Her behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would ever put up with that kind of treatment. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for never wanting to see my mother again? Because after the way she treated me throughout my childhood, as well as how she's treating me now, I'm seriously at a crossroads and I now don't know what to do. To start things off, I need to give some background. My main family consists of me, my mother, my father, and my half-sister, who is very mentally disabled, best described as Angel Man Syndrome. My father is a pretty normal guy, and I'm very thankful for him. My sister is mentally disabled, and she can't really live her life, so I try to give her the best one possible. My mom has always been somewhat entitled, but she is very mentally unwell. My mother and father have been divorced for as long as I can remember. One night, he came home to her being drunk, and when he was trying to help her, she called the cops on him for some reason and told the cops that he was mistreating her, and unfortunately for my father, the cops that showed up were complete idiots, believing my mother immediately without even letting my father speak. Dad spent the night in prison that evening, and my father could have just accepted the punishment he was given, but here's the thing. At the time this happened, my mother was pregnant with me, and he knew that she would try to keep me after the divorce they were planning, and if he had been arrested for mistreating his wife, it wouldn't go so well when he tried to have some custody over me. So he didn't accept the punishment and fought in court for this false accusation against him. One night, nearing the end of the court case, my mother called him just to try and manipulate my father into just giving up and that the court would believe a woman over him. My father then said back, and I quote, "I will be penniless and live on the street before I allow that boy to be living with you for his entire life. I won't be giving this up." And then he hung up the phone. Now, after years of fighting, he he finally won the court over and cleared his name. And after I was born and he divorced my mom, the court allowed equal custody over me. Now, with that bit of backstory out of the way, this story officially begins back when I was very little, specifically 6 or 7 years old. This is the year that my sister was born, and it is worth mentioning that my sister is not my father's child. I don't know most of the details, but I'm fairly certain she was an accidental pregnancy. Anyways, for my entire life, my mother was kind of awful at being a mother. She would make me, a child, take care of a disabled baby for the entire day, including making sure the child is fed. She would yell at me constantly and then apologize later, and I always accepted these apologies because she is really good at making me feel guilty. These yellings included when I was trying to go to sleep and then actually making me get up and do work whenever she felt angry with me. I don't even remember most of the reasons because I heard so many rants that eventually I just learned to ignore them. All in all, she was never the best mother, but she doesn't hate me. I mean, far from it. I do know that she cares about me, and that's honestly the most annoying part about it. Anyways, my mother doesn't have a job, and she was living off the money my father was sending her so that she could take care of me, as well as the money that she got from the government for my sister. Because of this, whoever is taking care of my sister is the one getting the money to take care of her, and this part will be important later on. This also eventually applied to me as I was diagnosed with ADHD, among other things, at a very young age, with my mother being happy that I got diagnosed. Eventually, my mother had to accept that she couldn't take care of my sister, even though I was the one doing it all the time, except when I was at school or at my dad's place. So she got a very nice woman and her husband to take care of my sister. My sister lived with them for a few years, and my life was going uphill. I still visited her every day that I was available, since the nice couple lived relatively close to my mother's house. Eventually, the nice couple started considering adopting my sister. Even though she was a little bit of a troublemaker and kind of a crybaby, they loved her just as much, if not more than I did. However, whoever's taking care of my sister gets money handed to them, which is enough to take care of her needs and much more. And if the nice husband and wife adopted her, they would then keep getting that money. So my mother immediately took my sister back and manipulated me into thinking that they were bad guys who were trying to take my sister away. And you know what? I hate to admit it, but if it was not for my father, I would have ended up like an entitled brat because I believed everything she said as a child. And this was no exception. I deleted their contact info, I spoke badly about them, and was very angry with them. And I heavily regret this after learning the truth, and I really wish that I could apologize. So, with my sister now back in my mother's house, my mom thankfully hired a group of social workers who are basically multiple babysitters. They would be there every single morning from 9 a.m. until 11 o'clock p.m., except for Friday evenings and Saturdays. But honestly, while they did take good care of my sister during the day, my sleep schedule didn't change much because since I cared for my sister and my mother, I took it upon myself to constantly wake up during the night to fix her machine whenever it stopped. And it's not a good idea for a young child to do that, but I cared and loved my sister while also feeling pity for my mother. And also as a side fact, she never woke up to do it, so I felt like I had to. My father later described me when he came to pick me up on Saturday afternoons that if anger could be a person, then that would be me. And honestly, he's right about that. I was not having a good sleep, and I was having to take care of my disabled sister, who always was crying, while also listening to my mom constantly yelling at me, and I'm stressed out about schoolwork. I mean, none of this was making me any happier. And apparently, there were a few days where my father actually saw me shaking with rage. Around the time COVID was starting up, my mother's house caught on fire. I don't remember the exact details. It's all a blur as of now, especially considering I was the one who noticed it and got everyone out at about 3 in the morning. It was either due to wiring or a candle burning that nobody put out. Luckily, nobody got hurt and nobody died, and my dog was fine too. The only thing that really got lost was a lot of clothing and my mother's bed, so it's not a huge loss. For the duration of COVID, it was back to me and me alone taking care of my sister for a year or so. I was trapped in a house yet again, with my mother yelling and my sister crying, and me losing my mind. My mother's mental health wasn't getting any better as time went on either, causing her to have certain delusions. One of these included when the social workers were allowed to come back and help out when COVID restrictions started to lift, and one of them ended up hurting her back when carrying my sister, and my mother for some reason blamed me for this. It took a while, no thanks to COVID, but eventually my mother's house was fixed thanks to insurance, and her mental wellness was at an all-time low, not to mention the delusions that she was experiencing. She eventually started hallucinating, but never spoke about it, even though she had the delusion that people were living in the attic. She even called me in and handed handed me her phone, telling me to be ready to dial 911 while she went upstairs to check. Now, I didn't think much of it, other than telling her that no one was there and to calm down, but I guess I didn't tell her that enough. On just another morning, I woke up at my father's house and headed downstairs to get breakfast ready. My father was already there with a look that I'd never seen on him before. He then informed me that my mother's house had burned down again, except this time it was on purpose. My mother had apparently set a fire in the living room, trying to smoke out the people she thought was in the attic. Thankfully, it happened on a Friday night, so there was no worker there, but my sister was there, sleeping soundly. Thankfully, instead of her and my sister passing away, my mother actually got her out of there. They were both fine, but at this point, 85% of my stuff was now gone for good. I was thankful my sister and mother were okay, but I now did not trust my mother, both for almost taking out my sister and for destroying all of my memories and keepsakes for my entire life, as well as the year-long school projects that I'd been working on, and now I had to redo them with only a week left. Now, at this point, the details get a little bit fuzzy here, mostly because I was a kid and my father tried to get details, but he just couldn't get that many. My sister was thankfully taken away from my mother and was given to a little house for disabled people. She was the only one there and she had multiple people taking care of her. I visited her every week or so and she was fine. She has no mental comprehension of much in life, and honestly, considering what she had been through, I was sort of happy in a way. My mother was apparently taken to a psych ward, and to this day, I still don't know the details of that analysis because she never sent it to my father. My father and I both think that she doesn't want us to know, which isn't exactly a good sign. Now, during this time, a court date was set up, but eventually my mother and I started talking over the phone, and for a while it went okay, but every time she would start going off the rails. She would lecture me and yell at me, and I've heard so many of her ramblings that I just don't remember most of her words. She, like I said before, is really good at using the guilt card on me, and I'm not good at avoiding it. But thankfully, my father was always there on standby, because he knew very well that one way or another, my mother would most likely go off the rails. There were multiple times that he took the phone from me after she started rambling, and he did that just to shut her up with a quick one-liner of some sort, and then would just straight up hang up on her. Now, my mother also apparently did other odd things. For example, she once stole a car thinking that the cops were on her, and to this day, this is probably the biggest delusion she's ever had. My dad has a good friend who we will call Dave, that's not his real name, and Dave unfortunately lives somewhat close to my mother's house, and while my mother occasionally has ranted at him in the past, he doesn't really care about most of it. He is a chill guy that doesn't get freaked out by much in life. Well, one day he pulled a letter out of his mailbox from my mother, and he didn't care at first, but after reading it, he was really freaked out. I won't go into details of everything said, but she just apologized for a lot of things that didn't even happen, and one of those things involved my mother telling Dave that she didn't unalive his mother. And by the way, Dave's mom is definitely still alive. Eventually, the denying of unaliving transferred over to me with the phone calls, and in one phone call, my father wasn't there, and she started to go off the rails, denying about wanting to unalive my sister, even describing how she could have done it if she wanted to. Now, knowing her very well, I simply took my phone and I set it to recording. Then I gave said recording to my father, telling him that he could use it if he wanted to. Well, my dad apparently showed the recording to his lawyer, and this lawyer is a good friend of my dad's, and she was absolutely appalled. Fast forward, and eventually a court date was set up, and she was charged for a number of things. But she evaded coming to court for so long, and the time it took for the court to even get it set up made it so that the court timer eventually ran out, and charges on her were mostly dropped. After this, she immediately tried to start getting my sister back into her custody, and not because she loved her or anything like that, but again, it's because whoever is taking care of my sister gets more than enough money to take care of her. Through the 3 years this happened, and even to this day, she never even got a job. You might be wondering how she survived that long without going homeless. Well, she ransacked my room, sold whatever she was able to salvage, and stole my wallet, which at the time was everything I had saved up, which was maybe about $1,000. And my father, being the caring man that he is, eventually gave me that money to make up for what she stole. She stole a car and eventually had to sell her house because she just wouldn't get a job ever. She eventually, throughout the months of trying, did get my sister back into her custody. But thankfully, people knew of her past with her, and she was assigned people to do random drinking and smoking tests on her, as well as check on my sister. They could come at any time and could check whether she'd done either of these things. Well, let's just say that my mom didn't even last 5 months. She went to the hospital for reasons I'm unaware of and lost custody of my sister again. I do know that she failed the test of checking on her smoking, and I'm honestly not surprised in the slightest. Now, throughout all of these years, my mother has always asked me to call and more so come to meet her in person, and with the court charges dropped, she persisted on that even harder, but I've never wanted to do that. My dad relays all of this to my mother over text messaging because there is no way I'm telling her through my messages, because then she would have my phone number. My mother has always blamed my father, claiming that he won't let her see me, which he doesn't even care about, especially since everyone but her has realized that this is my choice. Eventually, about a month ago, she asked my father if she could meet me in person. She's never getting my sister back now, by the way, so her only option is me, because she really needed money because she just refuses to get a job. This was basically a last-ditch attempt from my mother to see me, saying that if I wasn't going to, she would move away from my town. My father told me all of this and I thought about it, and I told him to tell her in no uncertain terms that I and me alone do not wish to see her. Well, he gave that message to her and she's been silent ever since. I do feel somewhat bad for her, but I feel like I shouldn't, but she is my mother. I don't really miss her, but I do feel bad. So honestly, am I the jerk for not wanting to see my mother again? What should I do? First and foremost, you had a really rough childhood, and I'm so sorry you went through that with your mother. She does not sound like a good mom at all, and it really seems like she hit all the marks of being an awful mother. She didn't care about you or your sister. She left you to take care of your handicapped sister the entire time you were a kid, and she's done all these crazy things at your expense. Like seriously, this is no way to treat a child or anybody. So no, I don't blame you for cutting her off and saying that you don't want anything to do with her. You deserve to have a life that isn't chaotic in the way that your mother's made it, and I don't blame you for cutting her off in the slightest. Am I overreacting for wanting to break up with my girlfriend after she went camping with 2 other men? Because right now I'm feeling very anxious, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my girlfriend and I have been together for 2 years. She's 22 years old and I'm 27. When we first met before we got into a relationship, she told me she wanted to move out of state. Her reasons were very valid. However, I wasn't looking to move just yet, since I have obligations to tend to for at least a couple more years. Now, the first year and a half were great. We had our ups and downs, and we truly went through a lot together. And through it all, we formed a fantastic bond. Now, we have been long distance for half a year, and boy, is it hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's taking quite a toll on me. However, I love this woman. I've seen her 3 times the past year and a half, with each time being about 3 or 4 days. And I'm currently putting my ducks in a row in order to move there in about a year. She lives there now, and of course, she has to make friends. And she made some friends playing volleyball at the park. There's this one particular guy who I will call Mike, who wants to be her mentor for the job that she does. Now, he is legit. However, when I first met him, he was almost caught off guard that she had a boyfriend. Something about the way he said, "Oh, cool," when she introduced us. I don't know, their interaction together was weird. I never want to be that kind of boyfriend, so I shelved it in my mind and then I moved on. And now she's telling me that she's going camping with some volleyball people. It's going to be 2 guys and her, and one of them is Mike. Now, she could see it on my face that I was uncomfortable with it, but we got distracted with something else and didn't talk about it. She came back a few days later and told me she convinced one of her girlfriends to come along with her, so everybody's gonna be sleeping in their respective cars. But honestly, it's not about the camp. It's about this Mike guy. I can tell her that, but I just can't tell her what to do or not to do. They're currently back from camp, and I'm honestly unhappy about this. Perhaps I'm jealous and frustrated because I can't be there, but these guys even paid for everything. They got jet skis and paddle boards and the boat that they spent the whole day on, and I know her financial situation, so that's how I know they paid for everything. I don't know, I just feel like she wouldn't like it if I did that with 2 other women. So am I overreacting for wanting to end the relationship? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. I can completely understand where you're coming from, because the way this went about was really sketchy. Like, she's going on this camping trip with these guys and had full intentions of only going on that trip with those 2 while bringing along a girl as an afterthought just to make you happy. Like, it's hard enough that you guys are long distance as it is, but to go off on a trip like that all of a sudden is just really suspicious in my opinion, and I don't blame you for being upset. So hopefully you 2 are able to talk about this in some kind of way, because I completely agree with you. If you did that with 2 other women, I'm sure she would be very upset, and hopefully she can see exactly where you're coming from. My entitled sister refuses to pay me back any money that she owes me, claiming that because my elderly dad pays me to take care of him full time, my money isn't actually mine, and that I should be okay with her taking it. And I'm honestly so frustrated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm almost in tears as I'm writing writing this because I am so infuriated. My 34-year-old sister works full-time, but has always been irresponsible about money. She has a lot of credit card debt, and there's been several times throughout the year that she has either asked me to borrow money or gone into debt. My mom passed away 3 years ago, and Mother's Day is a very difficult holiday. My dad is elderly, and the last year that I was living with him, I was helping him full-time because he has health issues, and otherwise I would have just gotten a caregiver. Prior to that, I had given up my apartment and my job to move in with him as a temporary thing just to help out. My dad paid me each month to help him, but nowhere near the amount of money that it would be to hire a professional caregiver. However, he wanted me to be able to get my independence back, as well as being able to get a job again outside of him, so he helped me financially with getting an apartment last month, simply because I've been helping him, which I honestly appreciate so much. I am still going over there and helping him several times a week with all of his meal prep, as well as his medical appointments, because right now I'm job searching, and when I do get a job, obviously things will shift, and he will need to get someone to come in and help. Because Mother's Day is a difficult day after the loss of my mom, my sister had suggested that just the two of us should go out today to brunch and a movie. She had found a restaurant and pre-booked the movie tickets, which I paid her for. When we were at lunch, I asked the waiter to put it on separate checks, and he ended up putting some of her items on mine because I think he was just confused on how to do it, and I said that's fine, and I just told her to send me money through a Cash App. Well, when I said that, she just kind of brushed it off and just told me that she can't do that right now. I said, okay, I'm a little confused. If he had put the items on your check, you would be paying for it. And she said, I asked Dad if I can use his card and pay him back, so I can't pay you right now. When she said that, I was getting increasingly annoyed about this because she knows I am living on a certain budget per month, and it's a pretty low budget that my dad pays me in terms of helping him every day full time. She then proceeded to tell me that it's not my money anyways. She then said that Dad is paying for my entire life, so any money that I have is not actually mine, and I was so sickened by this comment because I help him full time and I get payment in return. I don't ask her for any help, and she only helps him once in a while. She also has taken money in previous months out of my dad's account and has said that it was by accident and told him that she would pay him back and still hasn't several times over. Because she was going after me in terms of saying that it's not my money anyways, I said, well, at least I didn't steal from him. I clarified that there was a charge last month for $300 that clearly he knows was taken from him. She then started to get rude and said to me that it was by accident and she didn't steal it. We then left the restaurant and she didn't say a word to me. She just headed towards the car instead of the movie theater. I told her if we are not going to the movie, I expect my money back since I already paid for it. But she just ignored me and didn't say a word. We get back and she drops me at my car. I told her that I expect to be paid back and I'm not going to forget about it. But she just ignored me and didn't say anything. And right now I am beyond upset. It's already been a really difficult day with the loss of my mom, but the fact that I basically fronted money for her and I feel as though she has no intention to ever pay me back, and she dismissed that it's even my money in the first place, is all so infuriating. My dad also enabled her a lot, and I have tried to warn him that this continues to happen, and it's all super enabling, but he's worried about getting on the wrong page with her, so he gives her money when she needs it and just doesn't ask any questions. However, with me, if she had simply asked me in advance and said that she doesn't have money to go out today and that if I could just pay for it and she would pay me back, I would have said yes. It's more just the assumption that's really getting to me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your sister is super toxic. Like seriously, she knows your money is tight right now, and she knows that you're going through a hard time. You literally upended your entire life so that you could take care of your dad. So for her to be like, oh yeah, that money isn't actually yours, Dad pays for everything you have. It's like, yeah, no kidding, Dad's paying me. I work full time to take care of him. Meanwhile, she's literally done nothing to help out. It's all super unfair, and I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. And I honestly don't blame you for getting upset because the way she's acting is super inappropriate. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My coworker is incredibly creepy, making uncomfortable comments towards me and my other coworkers all the time, and highly suggesting that he basically wants to hook up with me. And now I feel like I'm at a crossroads as I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I want to give as much context as possible. I'm also at a job where I have to sit here awake all night and find ways to occupy my time. So I suppose
suppose this will be helpful in more ways than one. I'm a 29-year-old female, and I work midnight shifts part-time. It is required that 2 people be in the building all night long, and I have a set position, so I work 4 nights in a row, and then I have 10 off. It is honestly a blessing, and the best schedule someone with insomnia could ever ask for. The job is easy, relaxing, and the majority of the coworkers I've met have been great. There is literally only one problem, and it's this guy who's 40 years old that I have to work with every single night. He also has a set schedule, but he is full-time. He is here 8 days in a row, and 4 of those days collide with my schedule. I am new to this building, but I've worked for this company for 6 years. He has been with this building for a few years, and honestly, he makes me very uncomfortable. I try to be open and not judgmental. I mean, I love when people are weird and unique, and I generally love conversing with people about just whatever might be going on. And this isn't a case where I'm saying, oh, he makes me uncomfortable and I can't figure out why. Trust me, I know exactly why he makes me uncomfortable. There are so many reasons, but I'm gonna start off with the biggest reason first. The very first night that we met, he expressed to me that he was single and lonely and looking for a girlfriend. Now, this struck me as odd, but I just used it as an opportunity to express that I was in a long-term relationship and didn't believe dating coworkers was a good idea anyways. This then brought him into a discussion about how he had just gotten out of a relationship with one of our coworkers. It was a girl that I had started with, and it's someone I admire because she is kind and she takes her job seriously. And usually, these are my only requirements for liking a coworker. He talked for a long time about how she was insane and led him on, and her only reason when she left him was because he was too good of a boyfriend. And this really made me weary already, because that's honestly a really weird thing to say. He regularly talks about how he met a pretty girl, but not like actually met them. Instead, he mentions how a cashier at the gas station flirted with him, and then would say something like, I'm thinking about moving to a town over because I would be closer to her, and maybe I could turn this flirtation into something more. For reference, he lives 20 minutes away from this town as it is, and it honestly just gives very bad vibes. There also happens to be a few young boys who work here, and we're talking like 18 years old, maybe in their senior year of high school, and there's about an hour overlap between their shift and ours. One night, one of them was talking about possibly taking an extra training course the job offers because it's only a week long, and when you're finished, you get a 75-cent raise. It does raise responsibility just a little bit, but it's nothing crazy. Essentially, if there ever isn't a supervisor available, it would fall to the person with these qualifications. But it's important to note that you aren't a supervisor. I remember thinking to myself, what a good kid. It seems like he has a good head on his shoulders. Well, this coworker of mine says to him, yeah, and also think about the cute girls that you could meet while you're there. And I thought to myself, like, dude, what are you doing? You're like 40 years old. Stop talking to kids like that. I just redirected with, well, I think that's a solid plan, and you sound like you have your priorities straight. Now that we've been working together for a few months, he seems to be getting more comfortable, but I have not. I bring my laptop with me every night, and sometimes I type up work, and sometimes I watch TV, or sometimes I'm on Discord watching whatever my boyfriend is streaming. Lately, he's been coming up behind me, standing way too close while leaning over top of me, and asking me questions like, what are you watching? What's that about? He's saying whatever he can to extend the conversation, while I sit there with some random dude towering over top of me that I hardly know. It is super uncomfortable. Now, I am not shy. I have no issue expressing that I'm not okay with him being in my bubble, but he does not seem to care as he continues to do this. Mind you, we work in the middle of nowhere, and it's just the two of us. He is about 6 foot and maybe 200 pounds, and I'm a towering 5 foot nothing and maybe 150 pounds. So the difference is massive. Last night, he said something that really put me off. During the overlap between shifts, one of the high schoolers and I were discussing the Avril Lavigne conspiracy theory. I mentioned how she is a very beautiful girl, and my 40-year-old coworker took this as an opportunity to say to me, oh, if I could create my dream girl in a lab, I think she would look like Millie Bobby Brown, so young and so hot. And when he said that, I almost puked. Don't get me wrong, she is gorgeous. It is not wrong to acknowledge that she is an attractive person whatsoever. But when you're 40 and you're speaking about a 20-year-old girl like that, like seriously, that's so weird. I'm 29, and when I look at 20-year-olds, I couldn't imagine seeing them like that. Now, like I said earlier, I have no problem speaking up. And trust me, that's exactly what I did. I told him he was way too old to be speaking about her like that, and he said, what? She's like 25? What's the problem? So I explained that she's 20, but even if she was 25, it would still be wrong. He just looked at me and said, it's still legal. And I got very upset and snapped back by saying, well, legal doesn't make it right. And this ended there. So tonight, I'm here again. My last night of the 4, and I've realized that he not only makes me super uncomfortable, but I'm dreading coming to work every single night. I'm taking a lot of smoke breaks despite not being a smoker, and my boyfriend even suggested I wear my aunt's ring on my left hand and pretend to be engaged, but that doesn't seem to be getting him to back off. For the record, my boyfriend and I have been together for many years and we have 2 kids. We both want to get married and have discussed it, but unfortunately, it just isn't in the cards financially. I'm now at a point where I'm considering going to my boss. I know for a fact she would speak with him and tell him to back off. She is a good woman, and she's been my boss for the entirety of my time here. The reason I'm second guessing it is because I'm worried about retaliation, because as I've mentioned, it's just the 2 of us in the middle of nowhere for 10 hours. Also, I'm worried about my perfect schedule getting moved around. So my question is, am I overreacting? Should I let him keep being weird? Maybe I'm just taking him the wrong way, I don't really know. Or should I go to my boss and let whatever happens happen? What should I do? I don't think you're overreacting, and honestly, I think your coworker is really creepy. Like, he's making these really inappropriate comments and kind of like suggesting that he wants to hook up with you in some kind of way. Like, it's not something he's actively saying, but like seriously, it's really implied. And that is seriously uncalled for. So yes, if I was in your shoes, I would be going directly to my boss. I would be documenting everything that he said, as well as all the creepy behavior that he's exhibiting, and if anything, maybe request to have somebody else with you on those nights. And I totally get it, you don't want to mess up your perfect schedule, but you might need to accept the fact that this is going to happen if you do plan on getting away from this guy, because what you're describing does not sound okay, and in my opinion, I think you need to do something sooner than later. My job is making me miserable, and is constantly failing to deliver on all the things that I was promised, and now that I found out my coworkers are talking garbage about me behind my back, I am now at a crossroads, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, I'm 23 years old, and I've been working in restaurants since I was 18 years old. I've worked for restaurants in 2 different countries, and I'm an immigrant from Scotland who currently resides in America. I recently got a job as a host this April, and during the hiring process, I was promised that there would be 0 drama, which I knew was a lie, but one could hope, right? What helped me get the job was that I used to work for another sister company, which ironically, I had some of the same issues with as well. I was also told that I would be placed on kitchen shifts, so my first day when I was supposed to work, I couldn't because my name and information was yet to be put in the system, and it was like this for 3 days, which I was told that was just a system problem, which I completely understood. On my official first day, I was thrown to the wolves and not really trained. I naturally learned almost everything by myself, and I am actively still learning things. I don't typically trust technology with schedules and all this other stuff, so I would write out my schedule on paper just in case. I still don't have a hold of all the table numbers, and apparently I'm also supposed to take to-go orders, which is something I wasn't told to do. So now I have to learn the entire menu. It also doesn't help that we are so understaffed in the mornings, which also reminds me that I was promised that I wouldn't be the only morning host on, which is ironically enough one of the problems I had with the sister company. I mean, things can get so overwhelming. It also didn't help that multiple people supposedly trained me and told me different things because we didn't have an official trainer. When I touched base with the general manager about the kitchen shifts, he told me he would put me on kitchen as soon as he hires more people to be a host. But now he's hired multiple hosts and I still haven't been placed on any kitchen shifts. It has got to a point where I've heard new servers and bartenders talking garbage about me, which isn't totally abnormal. I knew it was going to happen one day or another, but they have so many complaints about me. They don't like the way I do rotation. They don't like how I seat people. The list goes on and on. I even heard one of the people talking about how I walk, but it's gotten to the point of blatant xenophobia, which I definitely reported, but then I was told that it wasn't happening by managers when multiple other hosts and even a server told me, and I witnessed it for myself. Right from the start, I told my managers that I would have a trip to make in late May, which would last an entire week, and all of them were okay with it. They simply told me to put in the request on the application we use, and this needed to be done 7 days before the trip. I am a big communication sort of guy, but fast forward to today and my request got denied. There is more to add, but honestly, that's just the quick rundown. I honestly feel like going to HR, but I have never gone to HR for anything before, so I'm honestly so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, this restaurant sounds like an absolute mess to deal with. First of all, they're not even giving you the stuff that you were promised, and then even though you're doing your best after not being trained, people are talking garbage about you. Like seriously, that is so uncalled for and so toxic. There is literally no reason for them to do that, and it's only driving a wedge between you and your coworkers. So personally, I would definitely be going to my boss or human resources of some kind, because this is absolutely unacceptable. I would take note of everything that's going on, and I would absolutely report these people for making a hostile work environment, because in my opinion, you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not showing up to a Mother's Day lunch with my extended paternal family simply because they've been super toxic to me in the past? Because right now, they are very angry that I didn't show up, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and this is the first year where I don't live at home anymore, and it was the first time it was up to me what I did for Mother's Day. I was invited to celebrate with my extended paternal family, including my dad's wife, but I chose to say no to their invite, and I spent some time with my two maternal aunts instead. This decision was controversial because my dad's wife married my dad when I was only 8 years old, and I grew up surrounded by my paternal family, and I was always there every year before this except for when my mom was alive. For reference, my mom passed away when I was 6 years old, and for context, we used to spend Mother's Day together with her sisters and my cousin. And here's another big fact. I hate my dad's wife. I hate most of my dad's family, and my dad isn't someone I respect very much. My dad's family hated my mom. They felt like she wasn't good enough for my dad, and they didn't like her parenting choices, such as not getting me into a sport from a very young age, because sports are huge on my dad's side, or even getting me in the kitchen when I was so little that I just don't even remember it starting. I just remember that being something mom and I did, and this is because they don't believe boys or men should be in the kitchen. They also don't like how dad would defend mom and would put them in their place if they brought up concerns with her, and they also thought that mom was using dad because he used to bring her a bunch of flowers once a week, and he would make things for her, such as the keychain that she used until she passed away, and even made her a bracelet. They thought dad was being weak with her and that she was turning him into someone who only cared about her. Now, I know all of this because my dad's family and my dad's wife talk garbage about my mom a lot, and they do this around me, and this has definitely led to fights. I used to be told that my dad's wife was a much better wife and mom, and I would just tell them that she's not my mom. She would tell me that I was a silly little child who just simply didn't understand adult issues, but I told her that she was a silly adult who wouldn't accept that she would never be important to me, and I would trade her for my mom every single time, and I would never love or accept her, and she wasn't half as good as my mom. I was told that she gave me something, which is something my sterile mother couldn't do. And you know what? My dad just let it happen, because when my mom passed away, he leaned on his family, and because of that, he ended up being soaked back in. And while he doesn't talk crap about mom, and he tells me it really bothers him, he simply won't do anything about it. So I have no respect for him. He is such a coward. He even leaves flowers on my mom's grave every single week behind their backs. I went very low contact at 18 years old and only got the invite because I didn't block them. I sent one reply that I would not be there, and I said nothing more even after their messages. But yesterday, when they realized I wasn't coming, I got so many text messages about how awful I was, and I just straight up blocked them. But then my dad's wife found me on social media and told me that I should be there to celebrate her, as well as saying how dare I not spend the day with my family. So honestly, am I the jerk for not showing up on Mother's Day? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't blame you for a second for staying out of that, because based on what you've described, your extended family sounds awful. Like seriously, they're gonna sit there and talk about your dead mom in a way that makes her seem like a villain? Like that's so unfair, and especially in front of you. Like if they seriously hold that kind of opinion, then maybe, I don't know, keep that to yourself until the kid's out of the room. For them to express that so openly and in front of you at that, in my opinion, shows exactly how toxic they truly are. So no, you are not the jerk for not showing up, because if I was in your shoes, I think I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she is a complete idiot for expecting any kind of gifts for her marriage when she got eloped without telling a single person about it? Because right now she is very angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. When my husband and I got married, we had a small wedding with maybe about 150 people there. And trust me, that is very small for our families. We paid for everything ourselves. Altogether, we spent about $25,000, and it was in our budget, and we had saved up for it. And that literally included everything, from the dress that I wore to the wedding party's dresses and the tux rentals, while also adding in catering. If you name it, we paid for it, and it came in under budget. The people that came to the wedding were family and close friends, which honestly is the way it should be. And thankfully, they were generous with their gifts, both from the registry and with cash in envelopes. When everything was said and done, our house was filled with great stuff that we needed, and our savings were several thousands of dollars over where we started before we paid for the wedding. Now, with that bit of context out of the way, my husband's sister just eloped in February, and nobody found out about it until early April when she sent out links to her wedding registry. Now, not too many people have bought anything off of it yet, and she is now getting super upset about that. All she talks about whenever we speak is how cheap everybody is being. Every conversation leads back to the same topic, and after more than a month of this, I've simply had enough. I asked her if she understood why we got gifts when I married her brother. I mean, we had a physical wedding that took place at a church and then a reception at a rented ballroom. Well, when I said that, she said I was treating her like an idiot and that she understood the difference between our weddings. I asked her, well, why she would expect the same kind of treatment for two very different events. I then said that only an idiot would think the outcome would be the same in both situations. Well, now she is very mad at me, and my husband said he was also frustrated with her stupidity, but that I should apologize for calling her an idiot. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for what I said? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, it really seems like she was harping about this for way too long, and in my opinion, that's just super obnoxious. And I think you spelled it out perfectly in my opinion. Like, you two seriously had way different events. You got married at a physical location, and you had it in such a way where people could plan on attending. And in her case, she's sitting there like, oh yeah, well, we got eloped. Why is nobody giving us any kind of gift? And it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe because you didn't tell anybody that you got married? Like, no one knew about it, and they're now just getting a link being like, hey, here's my wedding registry. And it's like, what are you talking about? Why would anyone give you anything? The original poster actually planned on something and wanted people to be there, whereas this sister-in-law basically did this spur of the moment, and now she's wondering, wait a second, why don't I have anything that you have? So in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong. I think you're completely justified for saying that she is out of line, because the way she's acting honestly would have gotten very annoying very quickly. My crazy entitled sister organized with her friends to steal my bike and dump it in a lake as some form of weird twisted revenge. But after dealing with her attitude my entire life, I refused to take this sitting down, demanding that she give me my bike back or else I was going to call the cops. And I've honestly never been more frustrated with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that this situation is downright crazy. I seriously never thought my sister would do something like this. To get straight to the point, my parents and sister were angry at me for regularly eating in a hospital cafeteria, all because it was close to my work. I enjoy the peace and quiet there on the days I do show up to eat, but this situation escalated so radically that I can't believe that something this dumb actually happened. My sister did the pettiest thing she's ever done to me, and it was all for completely undeserved reasons too. Now, when my sister found out I was eating at the hospital cafeteria, she went off on me. She was fussing at me about how that food is just for people who are at the hospital because they need to be there. We ended up in a big argument about it, in which I told her it wasn't like I was taking food from the mouths of patients. Then she went to our parents to get them on her side just like always, and they immediately sided with her just like I thought they would. They backed her up on how the hospital cafeteria was not a place to go eating casually, and we had a big argument. They spent days hounding me and telling me that I was wrong and demanding that I stopped. So I went online to find some kind of advice to help me out, and here I learned that not only was I not doing anything wrong, but it's a very common thing for people to go eat at hospital cafeterias just because they like to do it. Now, I had hoped that the situation would have just faded away, but a few days later, my sister called me asking if I stopped eating at the hospital. But when I said no, this all just started all over again. My parents then called me fuming, acting like I was supposed to stop going because they said so. I reminded them that I don't live under their roof anymore, and this is exactly the reason why I moved out. They take my sister's side on almost everything, and the entire time they're huffing and puffing about it. This time, the fight didn't stay at home though. Other relatives found out because my sister tried to broaden her support. She was so dead set on enforcing her will upon me that she went looking for help from other relatives. But our parents were the only ones on her side, and my uncle personally admonished my parents and her over the phone for it once I told him what actually happened. He then told them that they were only siding with my sister because she's their favorite, and that they're terrible parents for ever playing favorites to begin with. Then, my cousin went to eat with me at the hospital cafeteria and said that he would like to go there once a week as well, as he also works nearby and takes a bicycle everywhere. And we've run into each other at lunch there once before already. He was actually rather pleased to find out the food was made healthier than most most other places. And trust me, he is a very picky eater, so this place is kind of his new lunch hangout. And my sister got even angrier after finding out that there were other people in the family eating at the hospital now as well. Once outed, my parents backed down due to embarrassment. They apologized to me and gave me some malarkey that they honestly thought eating at a hospital was weird and that they just felt like they needed to defend my sister. I told them that they had been placating my sister for so long that it's all they do whenever she starts something with anyone. She's been treating me like a condescending control freak and a bully since we were teenagers, even though I'm older and they just kept enabling that. But I won't be putting up with it anymore. My parents ended up conceding and then apologized. They then made my sister apologize too, and I could tell that she hated every second of it because she tried to speak through her teeth at first. Later on, my parents invited me to dinner as another form of apology, but it felt more like a show to look good to the rest of the family because they told everybody about it before it even happened. And honestly, the dinner was great, I can't deny it. My parents had cooked a turkey, and arguably it's one of my favorite things to eat. Now, here's where things really get messy. Later, after the family dinner, I noticed that my bike was missing. I had parked it in the backyard out of sight, but it was just completely gone. Now, I started to freak out because this is my only mode of transportation. And my parents did panic with me, but my sister seemed just the opposite. She actually looked happy and was giggling. Well, when I saw that, I immediately suspected her, but she just played innocent. She even looked at me and said, "Oh, I can't believe you would think I would ever do something like that." I already know she's extremely petty, but this is a whole new level even for her. So I said I was going to go over to the neighbor's house because I know that they have cameras. So they definitely would have seen what happened, and then I'm gonna call the cops. Well, when I said that, my sister suddenly looked extremely panicked, and I got mad and said I knew it was her. And right then and there, I demanded my bike back. But right at that moment, she started to cry, saying that she didn't do anything. And our parents were immediately taking her side while scolding me for daring to accuse her like that. So I had had enough, and I said I was going to the neighbors to check their cameras, and then I'm definitely calling the police. Once everybody knew I was serious, my sister finally fessed up and called me to come back. The looks on our parents' faces after they just defended her were priceless. My sister said that she was just so angry at me for having made her apologize for something she still believed she was right about. So she planned to have a couple of her friends to come and grab my bike during dinner. She said her friends were in a minivan with it just down the street. She then started saying that I couldn't call the police on her anyways because I'm her big brother, with our parents backing that up as well. But you know what I did? I pulled out my phone and I started marching outside again. They ran after me and my sister begged and cried for me to stop, but I just called her a brat, and then I told my parents I couldn't believe they were still defending her when she was acting this way. Our parents finally hit their enabling limit with her and told her to make her friends bring back the bike immediately. She got on the phone while sniffling and called her friends up, but then she suddenly ran into her room to talk to them. I couldn't hear a thing that she said through the door because it was all whispers, and our parents looked very worried as well. My sister would never willingly admit that she had my bike stolen. She just kept sobbing that it was only a prank over and over again, and she kept using the same excuse that it's just a cheap bike anyways. I mean, I did buy it used some months ago for $50, but it's in great shape, and it's my main mode of transportation. My sister kept looking at our parents to back her up, and that time they just simply couldn't do it. So she just slumped down in a chair, hugging her knees and waiting with the rest of us. My sister looked increasingly freaked out the longer her friends took to bring my bike back, and was repeatedly texting them over and over again. Even though my sister said her friends were just down the street, it took them roughly an hour to bring my bike back. They finally pulled up in the minivan with my bike shoved in the back, and it was completely soaked and all muddy, almost as if they'd pulled it out of a wet, muddy ditch. The bike is a 700C, so it's too tall for either of them to ride. So they just drove right up and stole the bike by dragging it into the van as fast as they could before taking off. And I say they stole it because I was almost certain in the moment my sister had told them to dispose of my bike. I mean, had I not pointed out the neighbors having cameras, I may have never gotten it back. When her friends did finally arrive, their legs were all muddy and wet nearly up to their knees. They both begged me not to report them to the police for taking the bike, but I asked while recording them to tell me the truth and pointed out that the neighbors have cameras. I wanted to know right then and there, did my sister want them to get rid of my bike? Well, they started to break down and they said yes. My sister wanted them to take the bike and dump it in a pond a few
few miles away, and they had to go back and get it when they realized that they were caught. My bike had been near completely submerged in muddy water, but thankfully I didn't have many added accessories on it besides a detachable headlight and my water bottle. But even then, the water bottle was missing. Now, I wasn't surprised by what my sister's friends told me, and I had them tell our parents too. Well, when they heard that, they laid into my sister till she was bawling on the floor, kicking and pounding like a toddler. And I had never seen my sister act that way since she actually was a toddler. And I found it mortifying that she was still like this on the inside. Then she shut herself in her room. Her friends were banned from ever coming to my parents' house again. And then my sister was forced to come out of her room by our mother and make another big apology to me. Our father then forced her to wash and oil my bike from stem to stem, all under his supervision, while I took apart the headlight and cleaned it out to dry it. By the time my sister was done, it was dark outside. She glared at me like I was the devil when she came back in the house, but our parents shut her attitude right down and said they've never been more embarrassed by her in their lives. She went back to crying in her room, and I had a very frank discussion with my parents about my sister's childlike behavior and how it all stemmed from their spoiling and enabling. I said that I couldn't believe that I had to be the voice of reason, but the fact that she was on the floor crying like a toddler, kicking and pounding, showed that she's still mentally a child because of them. And they kept making me the scapegoat when she's the one that screwed up, so she barely knows any sense of accountability. For once, they didn't argue with me about it, and then my father silently drove me and my bike back to my apartment with his SUV. He also gave me some money to replace my bike's missing water bottle before we parted ways. Now, my sister and her clique of friends used to bother me a fair bit whenever we ran into each other, and they liked to make fun of me as a group whenever possible. And I usually just ignored them because they bored me, and that really seemed to tick them off. But after the bike incident, I got sent numerous messages from numbers I didn't even know that were cussing me out for making my sister cry over a silly prank. Knowing her, my sister probably fed everyone she knew a very different story on what actually happened. So I texted lengthy replies of the real story and even stated that I have recordings of her friends admitting the truth. Some people at my sister's college found out what actually went down, and this might have been from my text messages or her friends spilling the beans, but it embarrassed my sister so much that she came home having a crying temper tantrum about how people were calling her and her friends awful names, as well as accusing them of being bike thieves. Now, I may not have gone to college, but I know students who need them are very protective of their bikes. I mean, after all, a lot of them live on shoestring budgets. My sister said someone even joked that they shouldn't leave a bike around her because it might just disappear if she had to apologize to anyone. My sister ended up so upset that she refused to leave her room for 3 days just so she could continue the pity party. My parents called me up to try and turn everything on me again, but I reminded them about the discussion we had literally days before and that they needed to stop babying her and to let her deal with the repercussions of her actions. If she fails her classes again, it's because she's not trying like she should be. Then I went off on how they're just looking for someone to blame just to make her feel better. But you know what? She made the problem, not me. And I was not going to be the one they make the scapegoat any longer. My sister is an adult, and she really needs to act like it. Now, at this point, they sound defeated, and then apologize before ending the call. And it looks like they were genuinely hoping I'd just sit back and take the blame, just so my sister would feel better, but I'm just never going to do that again. Now, my parents are trying to pretend this all never happened, and my sister as well as her clique are avoiding me at all cost, which I suppose is fine, because seriously, I don't want any more drama. Because trust me, the next time something like this happens to me again, I will not be taking it from any of them ever again. Yeah, your sister is super crazy for doing that. Like seriously, who plans to have someone else's property stolen all because the other person has to apologize? Like that is such a crazy response to saying I'm sorry. Like I can understand not liking your siblings and not liking the decisions they make, but to orchestrate your brother's bike getting stolen simply because you lost an argument and you're pissed off, like that is such a huge escalation. There's just no good excuse for that. Like the barrier of entry for not doing something insane in this situation was so low that it's bonkers to me that the sister still failed to be a decent human being. Like seriously, just don't steal other people's stuff. Like that's super simple. And also, what kind of friends would be willing to do something like that for this sister? Like they seriously went along with this and said, yeah, we'll help steal from your brother. We'll show him. Like these people are adults. They do know that, right? Like if the original poster wanted to press charges and be like, hey, I've got all the evidence I need to like put you in jail for stealing from me, he easily could have done
done that. Not to mention the camera footage from the neighbor literally across the street, because I know for a fact if my friend came up to me and said, hey, let's steal from my brother, and oh, by the way, we're gonna dump his bike in a lake, I would be like, wait a second, what are we doing? This is not okay. So all of them are just as guilty as one another. They willingly went along with this when seriously, any rational human being would have been like, oh yeah, I'm gonna back out of this and not talk to this lady ever again. So honestly, good for you for proving that your sister orchestrated all of this, because based on the way your parents were acting, I'm pretty sure they would defend her no matter what. And hopefully nothing like this ever happens again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled friend is furious with me after I told her I was getting a dog that she doesn't like, and I'm honestly so confused by her reaction, and I'm worried that our friendship might be over. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened very recently, and I'm honestly unsure of how to handle it. I can't believe this is an issue to begin with, so this may be a bit of a rant. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I have a friend who is in her 50s, and we are close friends. The kind where you don't talk often, but when you do, it's always really good. We mainly talk about our pets, and she's been there for me a lot, and I really do value her and our friendship. But there is only one issue. It is never a good idea to disagree with her. She has very strong opinions and will shove them down everybody's throat. She's also notorious in all pet stores, and all for the wrong reasons. I'm not too bothered by it. I just know when to shut my mouth and agree. Arguing is not worth it, and I find our friendship more important than being right about something. It has never really been a problem until now. When I brought up wanting a Doberman, she was rather judgmental, saying that I'm too insecure to raise a dog and that a dog wouldn't solve my mental problems. I found her assumptions harmful and very untrue, even if she probably meant well. Obviously, a dog won't make my mental illness go away, but I think taking care of a dog and having a companion has been helpful for a lot of people, especially someone with mental illness. It just so happens that a Doberman is exactly what I want, as they fit my lifestyle. I'm also not as spineless or insecure as she made me out to be. But the thing is, I just don't like to argue with her because I know that she would end our entire friendship over me not agreeing on something. I don't waste my energy on an argument that won't lead anywhere. So I just didn't mention it again, and I wasn't super upset. I just decided not to talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I sent a video of a puppy that I have my eyes on. I hoped that maybe she would be happy for me, and somehow I thought that she would be, but instead, she sent me a voice message demanding I tell her which exact reasons I have to get a Doberman. It made me feel like I had to justify my decision to her, almost as if I needed her permission or something like that. Now, me having this dog won't affect her in the slightest, so I find this weird and honestly kind of entitled. Also, I knew she would disagree with all of my reasonings, so I politely said that I know she doesn't think that I'm the right person for this, but that I disagree, and I've done a lot of research, which I definitely have. I have considered this for literally years, although I didn't talk to her about it until I previously mentioned the dog. I just didn't see a reason to, and I still don't. Like I said, it doesn't affect her, and it's not like we talk a lot or even talk about everything. I told her she has nothing to worry about and that the decision wasn't impulsive. Well, she immediately got upset. She said I was very defensive, even though I acted calm and I was very polite. However, I simply disagree, and I just didn't want to justify my decision. This is probably the first time I said no to her, and she started going off about how dangerous this dog is, that it's not the right breed for me, and that she knows a lot more about this than I do, and that I should be able to explain why I want one, especially to her. Now, she does know a lot about animals, but judging by what she said about the breed, she seriously does not know as much as she claims. They were very outdated views, and some of the facts were just so wrong. She said that I only want this dog to have as a shield, and that I'm going to end up with a weapon that I can't control. But I said multiple times that I understand and respect her opinion, and that I was sorry for upsetting her, but that I simply just don't agree, and I didn't like her initial question. According to her, I turned her into something that she's not, and I was the one being extremely defensive. But again, I was very calm, and I was never accusatory, while she was the one who sent me long voice messages in which she was yelling and crying. It seems like everything I said just made her more angry. She ended by saying I've insulted her and that I should know what that feels like. I said I was sorry about that, and that I hope we can talk about this when we're both calm. Now, at this point, I am extremely confused about what I did wrong, and I am honestly kind of angry because I feel feel like she's simply mad at me for not agreeing with her. She knows as well as I do that I will put all my time and energy into this dog, that I am someone who will make well-informed decisions and won't hesitate to ask a professional dog trainer for guidance. And even if we are close, we are not so close that I need to involve her in all decisions like this. But it seems like she thinks I can't do this without her approval. Now, I haven't heard from her since our argument, and I suspect that she expects me to apologize. And I'm now unsure of what to do, except wait until she calms down, and then she'll talk to me again like nothing happened. I might have to rethink this friendship, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, the lady you're talking about in this story is not your friend. No friend in their right mind would stop being your friend all because you disagree with them. Like, she sounds crazy, and I mean that quite literally. She has these strong opinions, and she's almost like policing everything that you do. And that is not a good friend. That's not even close to being a friend. That's just some controlling jerk who wants to like rule your life. And you definitely do not deserve that. And it's so bizarre for her to be like, wow, you don't deserve that dog. Give me the exact reasons why you want a Doberman. It's like, lady, what are you talking about? This isn't your mother. You don't have to like report to her about anything. And you know what? I know plenty of people whose mental health have improved because they own a dog. It gives you a routine, there's someone that is relying on you, and the dog literally forces you out of bed to feed and walk them. In my opinion, there are so many benefits of having a dog. So for her to be like, wow, that's not the right dog for you, that's a really insane thing to say and honestly so unacceptable. And the icing on the cake, in my opinion, is the fact that she kept screaming, I'm not being defensive, you're being defensive. She was trying to act like you're the one being super defensive and accusatory and turning her into something that she's not. Meanwhile, she's sending you all these messages literally yelling and crying because you're getting a Doberman. Like, that seriously sounds like she's projecting her own emotions on you, and that seriously is like insane in my opinion. So no, you do not need this lady's approval to get a dog, and hopefully you can see that she is not a good friend sooner than later, because her behavior is seriously unacceptable and you do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. My husband allowed his brother to propose to his girlfriend at our wedding, and this is all despite the fact that I said no, this is not gonna happen. But now that my worst fears have come true, and after running out of my wedding in a fit of rage, I'm now considering divorcing my husband as I feel completely betrayed. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, this is a throwaway account, and all the names in this story have been changed. I married my sweet husband Liam last Saturday, and it was perfect, except for one major hiccup during the reception. Liam has an older brother by the name of Ben, and they are very close. So it was no surprise when Liam asked Ben to be his best man. While I like most of my new in-laws, Ben has always rubbed me the wrong way with his behavior. He would crack all of these jokes that aren't really funny and tries way too hard to be the cool and popular guy. He's kind of like Screech from Saved by the Bell, only 10 times more annoying. To be honest, I feel somewhat sorry for Ben. Liam was diagnosed with high-functioning autism when he and Ben were kids, and as a result, their parents lavished more time and attention on Liam. This led to Ben being emotionally neglected, and as a result, he acted out big time in his teenage years. He got into a lot of trouble, and this led to their parents swinging the pendulum in the opposite direction, lavishing all their attention on Ben. Now, Liam kept his head down and didn't say anything, and to this day, their parents are more likely to side with Ben than with Liam. Now, Liam is a very sweet guy, as I mentioned. Unfortunately, he is a bit of a people pleaser and doesn't really understand social etiquette and social cues very well. It has caused some problems, but I don't regret knowing him or even marrying him. 4 weeks ago, Liam and I were having dinner with his parents and Ben, and everything was fun, and we were all talking about plans outside the wedding. And that's when Ben revealed that he had plans to ask his girlfriend by the name of Melody if she would marry him. And mind you, they'd been dating for 5 years. Now, of course, we were all excited and asked about his plans for the proposal. And that's when Ben turned to Liam and said something I honestly never expected. He said to him,
I was hoping to do it at your reception.
Now, when I heard that, I just laughed nervously. Knowing his tendency to make bad jokes, I told him, well, if you do that, any of my brothers would probably throw you out of the venue. But when I said that, Ben got offended that I laughed, and I realized that he was being serious. Now, instead of asking me what I thought, which he's pretty good about doing, Liam said, of course you can, Melody will love it. I touched Liam's arm and I said, we'll talk about it later. And he didn't understand why I was so upset, but I just wanted to get out of there, as my mother-in-law and father-in-law were too busy congratulating Ben, and I would not be able to tell Liam why it was such a bad idea. So Liam and I moved to a different room, and I explained to him about how another person proposing or making a major announcement was really in bad taste, as it takes away from the bride and groom. Well, Well, when Liam heard that, he nodded and he was crestfallen. Feeling sorry for him, I said to him, how about this? We organize a party with Ben for him to propose to Melody. That way, it could be far more memorable. Well, Liam liked the idea and we both went out. We went up to Ben and I told him that we were willing to help organize a special party so he can propose to Melody there, while also making it clear that he was not to propose at our wedding. Well, Ben nodded to what we said, and I thought that that was the end of it, but honestly, I couldn't have been more wrong. Saturday rolls around and the day goes off without a hitch. We get everything done and it's now time for the reception. And Ben, as the best man, has a speech prepared for us. It was full of bad jokes and weird attempts at puns, but it was overall very nice. But part of Ben's speech was to move around the tables, which really should have been a red flag, but I decided to not say anything. And at the end of the speech, Ben stopped at Melody and proposed to her. When this happened, I was so mad that I stormed out. Liam and my mom came to comfort me, and Liam apologized over and over again. He just kept saying over and over again that they told him it would be fine. Now, I was just so done at that point. My mom offered to drive me home, and Liam just kept begging for forgiveness, but I said to him quite bluntly, don't call me, I will call you. And after I said that, I left. Needless to say, Liam and I haven't seen each other since. My side of the family is angry at Liam and his family, but his family, on the other hand, are congratulating Ben and Melody, and most of their Facebook feed are pictures of Ben's proposal. Now, I was prepared to file for annulment and move on, all the way up until Liam sent me an email, and it's then that I learned that Ben and their parents applied a lot of pressure on Liam over and over again until he finally caved the night before the wedding. I asked him why he didn't just come to me, and he said to me that I was so stressed out and that he didn't want me to worry. Liam concluded by saying, I want another chance, please just give me another chance. Now, at this point, I'm really torn. I don't like that Liam went behind my back thanks to family pressure. That is not a good sign for our marriage. But on the other hand, I do still love him, and since he's a horrible liar, I know he's telling the truth. I still haven't made up my mind about what I want to do. Is our marriage even salvageable? Can we even rebuild this? Liam is genuine, but can I somehow persuade him that a family should never do that to another member of their family? What should I do? Okay, this is actually insane to me. This is not only a massive betrayal of trust, but it is also super sketchy that they did this behind your back. They went around you completely and pressured Liam until he said yes, which is something you definitely did not want. Also, how do these people not know that you don't propose at someone else's wedding or like their reception? Like seriously, that is so disgusting to do to somebody, and for his family to pressure your husband like that is just so wrong. Like you would think that'd be something you're automatically just gonna say, no, we're not gonna do that, but apparently Ben and his stupid parents just don't see it. And that really is a shame, because this could seriously ruin your marriage. Like if this is not a clear indication that they can manipulate Liam into doing whatever they want, then I don't know what is. Like this is the biggest day of both of your lives, and they literally ruined it behind your back. And if they can do that on your wedding day, then who's to say they wouldn't do that in the future? They clearly know the exact buttons to push on Liam to get him to do whatever they want. Who's to say they wouldn't do that again and just stomp all over your boundaries? So honestly, this is a really sketchy situation. It sounds like your new extended family are just really toxic, and what's even worse is that they just don't care. They're happily posting pictures of Ben and his girlfriend getting engaged, all while ignoring the fact that you and Liam literally just got married that same day, and they're the ones that ruined that entire ceremony completely. So no, I don't think you're crazy for possibly wanting to get a divorce like right away, because what just happened to you is completely unacceptable. And in my opinion, this is a clear indication on how these people are going to act for the rest of your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for accusing my husband in front of his family of treating me like hired help instead of like his wife? Because right now he is very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female, and I've been married to my husband for 4 years, with us being together for 7.5 years, and we have 2 children together. One that's 2 years old and one that's 5 months old. My husband was married before we met, and he and his ex-wife separated during her pregnancy with their daughter and divorced after she turned 1. Now, to my stepdaughter, I am dad's wife, and I'm honestly completely okay with that. We get along fine mostly, but she does struggle to be left with me in charge, and my husband knows this. We have discussed this at length, and we have worked together to figure out some kind of solution. We even talked with his ex, who is okay with with me being around her daughter, but didn't like the idea of her daughter being with me if instead she could be with her. And in general, just didn't like the fact that I would be in a parental role if alone with her kid. She has a very big dislike of the idea of step-parents becoming just like parents, and she has never wanted her daughter to view me as any kind of mother figure. So discussions were had and agreements were made. Now onto the issue itself. My husband always has a very busy period of work in June and in July, and he's basically only home to sleep and nothing else. In June, his ex is having surgery and will be out of commission and in the hospital for some time. My ex's surgery was not mentioned to me at all, but Saturday night when we were at my in-laws' house, my husband started venting about his ex's surgery and her not wanting their daughter to be in my care all day, and his daughter not wanting to have me in charge of her that much, and how he told them I would be doing it and nothing they said or did would change this. He was angry at his ex and his daughter a little for having such a dislike for me being in charge, even though we all just get along fine. I asked him when all this happened, and he said it had been a few days ago. He told me that she would be with us from June 6th until July 4th, and possibly even longer, that he was already told he will need to work most Saturdays in June and July, so he told me I'll need to figure out how best to deal with that. Now, I asked him why he sprung this on me in front of his family instead of discussing this privately, but he just waved me off and said he knew I wouldn't say no because I love my stepdaughter and I understand that she needs to be with an adult. He saw an expression on my face and told me I couldn't be angry about it, since I know that my stepdaughter is still a kid. I told him I wasn't mad at her, I was mad at him, but he told me he can't help his ex and his daughter being somewhat unreasonable. My mother-in-law chimed in and offered to take my stepdaughter during the daytime for June, and he told her that I would handle it and that she should be with us. And this right here is when I accused him of treating me like a hired help and not as his wife because he wasn't discussing it with me at all, and he was making decisions for me without even asking me or discussing things through. Well, fast forward, and it was afterwards that he told me I shouldn't speak to him like that in front of his family. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because seriously, I'm not sure what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your husband was completely out of line discussing this in public. This really does sound like a really private discussion, and it doesn't sound like something that anyone else in the family should know about. So if he's willing to embarrass you in front of the entire family, then in my opinion, you have every right to say something back in front of his. Like, why should he be the only one to basically put you down and treat you like hired help? Which is exactly what he did, by the way. He said, oh, don't worry about it, she's gonna take care of it. And it's like, wait a second, you're bringing this up in front of the family and you're denying family members from being helpful and like chiming in? Like, no, that is not how this is gonna work. And he definitely does not have the right to embarrass you in front of them like that. So no, your husband is 100% at fault because this is something he absolutely should have discussed in private. My entitled mother stole all of my money that I'd been saving for over a month. And when I confronted her about it, she simply complained that I'm still young and I don't even need the money anyways. And I'm honestly still blown away that she would do this, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been working every single day for a month without a day off because I wanted to go on a vacation with my friends after graduation. I mean, I worked so hard for this. I was saving them in my drawer, and there is a lock on it, so wherever I go, I take the key with me. But today, unfortunately, my idiotic self forgot the key on the dining room table. I went to the bathroom to take a shower, and nobody was home except for me and my mother. My siblings were all at school having an exam. So when I finished showering, I saw the keys in my room, but I didn't really care. I thought maybe I moved them before I went to the bathroom. Then I prepared my desk to study, and when I finished studying, I thought to myself, maybe I can go hang out with some friends. So I opened my drawer to grab some money, but I was shocked to find that all of it was gone. Nothing was left. So obviously, nobody's home except for me and my mom. I go to her and I confronted her as calmly as I could, and I said to her, "Did you open my drawer?" And I swear, I thought I saw her hand shaking as she said to me, "No, I didn't. Why?" I said to her, "Well, all of my money's gone." She said to me, "I didn't take anything. Someone's stealing my money as well. Or maybe you just dropped it somewhere like you always do. You are pretty careless." I said to her, "Well, if someone's stealing your money, then why would you take mine?" She then looked up at me and said, "Don't you dare talk to me like that. I'm your mother. Now close the door and get out of my sight before I pray that you fail your exams. What are you gonna do with money anyways? You're still young. Money comes and goes." And when she said this, I just didn't know what to say. I went back to my room and I texted my dad, and I told him exactly what happened, but I still haven't gotten a response back. My final exams are in 2 weeks, and I now can't work anymore, and my friends and I are planning that on the last day of the exam, exam, we're going to be heading straight out to go on vacation. This is the first time in my entire life that I feel so helpless and betrayed like that. But you know what? After graduation, I'm moving out of my parents' home, even if I become homeless, because honestly, I simply don't care anymore. Wow, that's really awful that your mom basically stole your money. Like, she can sit there and deny it and be like, oh yeah, I didn't steal it. But like, seriously, you're the only person that could have done it in the house. Like, that stash of money didn't just grow legs and start running away. Plus, the keys were moved from the dining room table over to your room. Like, all the evidence really points to her, especially with how defensive she got when you're like, wait a second, why did you take my money? And she's like, oh, what are you gonna do with money? You're so young. And it's like, what are you talking about? There are so many things I plan on doing with that money, and one of those is moving out of this house. So truly, I'm so sorry that you lost that money, and maybe in the meantime, it might be time to see if you can set up some kind of bank account so this can't happen again. Because what happened to you truly is not fair, and you do not deserve it in the slightest. My manager has said awful things about a brand new employee literally on the first day of her training, and I am seriously so glad that I'm getting out of that job because this kind of behavior is absolutely unacceptable. Here's what happened. Okay, so everything about my job just rubs me the wrong way. I have an interview somewhere else tomorrow, so I'm just here to talk about this because it honestly really bothered me. The new hire looked really young, and since she was training for host, I assumed that this was one of her first jobs and she still is in school or something like that. And truly, all of our hosts are in school and started hosting to become servers. I said hi and asked her when she started, and she told me that today was her first day. She seemed a bit shy and timid, which is understandable being young and at a new job, possibly one of her first. Well, the hosts and all the other support staff went home, and as we were doing our checkout, the manager starts talking about the new girl, and they said, oh, I didn't see her do a thing tonight. It looked like she did a whole bunch of nothing. And I was just standing there like, is this guy serious? What else did you expect from someone who was training and watching on their first day? Our hosts also don't just hang around and sit people all night, but they also help bust tables, they reset the tables, they sweep, they clean menus after each use, as well as several other things. And I saw her cleaning menus and setting tables. There's also a point of sale system behind the host stand that servers use, so it can get crowded and overwhelming back there at times. He started saying jokingly, well, maybe I missed it. Did you guys see her do anything today? And was even asking the other servers that same question. And I just felt so disgusted. And additionally, his idiotic self was upstairs and out of sight for like 80% of the night. So how in the world would he know anyways? Like, was he trash talking me on my first week to my coworkers? Because honestly, that's likely so. It's one thing to think that, but it's another to vocalize it in front of that person's coworkers, as well as to your employees. That is honestly just so unprofessional and so childish. Wow, I can't imagine actually doing that to one of your employees who's literally new to the job. Like, this is their first day on the job and you're like, wow, I didn't see them do a single thing all day. But it's like, yeah, no kidding, buddy. Maybe you didn't train her or do anything to help her out. Like, that really is disgusting and toxic. No wonder the original poster's interviewing literally anywhere else. Like, if that was my work environment, there's no way I would stick around. So truly, good job for the original poster for getting out of there, because these people sound absolutely awful. My entitled neighbor gets caught letting his dog go to the bathroom in my yard and then cusses me out as soon as I confront him. Here's what happened. So about a week ago, I noticed dog droppings all throughout my front yard and on my front porch. And since I don't have a dog, I kept trying to figure out who it was. Anyways, I work from home on different days of the week, but I park in the garage so it looks like no one is home. Well, early yesterday morning, I see one of my neighbors letting his dog walk through my yard, urinate, and then leave, which is honestly not really a big deal for me. I don't really have a problem with that. But around lunchtime yesterday, as I'm sitting in a meeting, I see him walking across the street into my yard again, and this time with his leash off, and his dog just poops in my yard. And then after that, he walks back across the street and then goes inside. I then decide to set up by the window to catch him in the act later in the afternoon. And a few hours later, he came back out with the same routine. He went right across the street into my yard. So I immediately open the door and I calmly tell him that he needs to keep his dog out of my yard and he needs to clean up after him. Well, instead of apologizing, this guy starts yelling and cussing me out, claiming that he was in his house first and his dog has a routine that she doesn't need to break. He then tells me that I should be at work instead of being lazy at home. He said he watches me leave and doesn't know how I afford a house when apparently I only work 2 days a week, but those 2 days are when I'm in the office. After this, he tells me that he's lucky his dog didn't attack me because she doesn't like being startled. Then today I go outside and I find 3 bags of poop sitting on my front porch. Now I call the non-emergency emergency sheriff line to let them know that I'm having issues, but I am beginning to think that this guy might be off his rocker. Yeah, that is not normal behavior. I would definitely be calling the police as well because that is so unacceptable. So seriously, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, and hopefully something can get figured out sooner than later. My entitled managers refused to give me my days off that I'm requesting simply because I was trying to be nice and said that I would be willing to work in the mornings if needed. But now after all is said and done, I am left feeling extremely frustrated. And at this point, I really just need to find another job. Here's what happened. So my restaurant got tired of people having a life and requesting days off, so they made a rule where you can't request 1 or 2 days off, and instead you have to request at least 3 days off. If you just want 1 or 2 days off, you have to wait until that week's schedule comes out and then try to get someone to cover your shift, which by the way is almost impossible since the restaurant is open 5 days a week and almost everybody works every single day. And I'm pretty sure this is the policy just to discourage people from requesting time off. So I requested 3 days off like I'm supposed to, so that I could go to a 3-day concert event with my friend. However, the venue is close by, and the concert starts at around 7 o'clock every single night, so I figured I'd just drive there every night. So I wrote on my request form that I can work the lunch shift if I need to, because I figured, what the heck, if they need me, I could still be on the schedule. Well, today an assistant manager comes to me and says that my request off wasn't approved, and if I wanted to go, I would have to get people to cover my shift. I said to them, wait, why didn't I get the time off? I requested 3 days off like the rules say. She said to me, yeah, but you said you could work the lunch shift, and we don't let people choose their schedules. But I said to her that I just did that so that you guys wouldn't have a hard time filling the shift. And if you know there's people to cover my shift, why don't you just schedule them for those shifts? She just looked at me and said, you should have just asked for the whole days off. I don't write the schedule. I asked another assistant manager, and he said the exact same thing. Like, they even have the ability to cover my shifts easily, but they just don't want to do it. Now, as a note, they almost always schedule me for lunch shifts on weekends already, and it's been that way since the first week that I've worked there. So basically, the fact that I offered to work on those days is the reason I got denied. So I put in another request today, not offering to work those days, and I'm expecting to be denied because it will make the owner look stupid if she gives it to me now. If she doesn't, I might just approach her and ask her to explain it to me, because there's no possible answer that she can give me that doesn't make her look like a complete idiot. I mean, I was a manager for over a decade, and I can say that writing the schedule does suck, but I still did it, and I tried to let employees have their requests off if possible. But overall, I'm just completely sick of this, and at this point, I seriously just need to find another job. Yeah, that place sounds awful. There is literally no reason why they couldn't just give you those 3 days off. Like, this really is some kind of like manager BS, where they only kept you on the schedule because you gave them an option to keep you on the schedule. Like, here you are trying to be nice, and they took complete advantage of it and said, okay, you're just gonna work then. Sorry, I don't control the schedule. Like, that's such a cop-out, it's not even funny. So yeah, I hope you find that new job, because this restaurant that you work at sounds absolutely awful. My entitled boss fires me after I refuse to quit my second job, stating that the only reason I have a second job is because I'm lazy, and I'm honestly still in shock by the way this guy treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back when I was 18 years old. Things may seem off, but remember, this was in the early 2000s, and that time was a crazy time. Now, for the sake of the story, I'll call my main boss the entitled boss, and my second boss the nice boss. Now, when I was 18 years old, my 37-year-old entitled boss was a tyrant. He lived life on easy mode. College was cheap for him, and he didn't have to pay because his dad covered all of it. His business was even started on him having advantages over his employees in life. He couldn't see that though, because he felt that he worked for all of it. He simply did not get how his millennial employees were struggling with what we were being paid. We were getting paid $5 an hour at the time, which I know for a fact was below the minimum wage at the time. I didn't complain though, because I needed a job. Living in New York is expensive, but it is hard to leave New York when your family is broke. At the time, I just started college, and he knew that and agreed to me having Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. That way I can go to school and at least have one day to myself. I needed to save towards paying off student loans and eventually getting my own place. Now, my parents were not bad, but could not afford paying for me to go to college and covering basic expenses. Now, lucky for me, I did get a scholarship and grants, but it did not cover everything. So I needed a job. Part of my money went to household expenses as well as my needs, along with attempting to save for my future. So I got this job. I thought since my boss agreed to do this and was younger younger, I wouldn't have any issues, and I thought it would be okay, but I was completely wrong. My entitled boss worked the younger employees to the bone. We only had 10-minute breaks for meals and barely got any time for ourselves. Even our bathroom trips were being timed. I mean, this guy just had no sympathy. Even if a woman was pregnant, there was no leeway. And to top it all off, we were scared of upsetting him because he would go from friendly to crazy at the drop of a dime. One girl who was working there quit because she was wanting more than one day to bury her grandmother. He told her,
"Why are you crying? Your grandma was old. When I lost my grandparents, I didn't even take a day off. I just kept working. God, kids these days are so sensitive. The real world isn't going to coddle you, sweetheart. You get one day or you're fired."
Well, when he said that, she tossed her name badge at him and then she left. And seriously, that girl was super brave. I noticed that even with my regular hours, I was struggling to get by. So I looked for small gigs I can do on my work days that wouldn't conflict with my work hours. So I found one that worked. I worked part-time at a small craft store in my neighborhood, and it was after my main job hours and by my house. Now, I kept this on the down low because I knew if my boss found out I was working somewhere else, he would get mad that I requested 3 days off during the week. However, a regular of our store let it slip while she thanked me, which is how he found out that I was working at the craft store as well. And when he found out, he had an absolute meltdown. During my break, he called me to his office and he demanded that I quit my second job so that I can be on call for my main one. He wanted me to work longer hours, but wouldn't give me a raise or even overtime to compensate for the extra time I might have been working, which by the way was not even guaranteed. Like seriously, I needed guaranteed money. So what incentive did I have to quit my second job? I needed extra money. Now, my nice boss from the craft store, they were paying me $6.50 an hour, and this was for 3 hours at 4 days a week. So when I said that I can't quit because I need that job for basic expenses, my entitled boss said to me,
"Don't you live with your parents? That's kind of pathetic. What expenses do you have? When I was your age, I already had my first home and was paying a mortgage. You just work here and go to college. Wait till you have to pay a mortgage and take care of kids. You either quit or you're gonna be fired."
Now, when he said that, I was so annoyed. He was not paying me extra and he was not entitled to my time. He used up my only break to tell me to be broke because he thinks I'm leeching off of my parents. So I looked at him and I said, no, I'm not gonna quit. If you aren't giving me steady hours or a pay increase, why should I leave my second job? Also, I don't know why he didn't get that I am an adult. I had to pay towards my student loans, my phone, my transportation, and my food. This guy had no sympathy. And after my shift, he fired me. He expected me to bend to him, but I just didn't do it. He was a jerk and he made my life a living nightmare, even after I was fired. I couldn't even put that place on my resume because if I did, he would tell potential employers that I'm lazy and that I stole food. So I just put the nice manager as my previous employer, and she was overall significantly a much nicer person. I told her what happened and she gave me a little more hours at the craft store, and that really helped until the end of the semester. When I was looking for work, she gave me a good recommendation, and she was the sweetest woman. Now, I did have to pause my education because it took a while to get a new job. I needed to save up to continue and eventually found a better paying job at a clinic. My nice boss wished me good luck in my future, and years later, when I was about 28 years old, I saw that this guy's store was for sale, and I was so happy to see that this guy's store got shut down. I asked around, and my old coworker said that nobody wanted to work for him because he was such a jerk. He started hiring undocumented workers and got in trouble for that. His wife left him for cheating on her with a 20-year-old, and he got fined so much, he had to sell his home just to cover the fines and alimony. And as a wonderful ironic twist, he apparently had to move in with his parents. And I laughed so hard because this guy made my life a living nightmare for living with my parents. He was now divorced and living off of his parents all over again. And this is honestly just the best thing I could have ever seen. By then, I was a pastry chef making good money in Manhattan. So the universe was basically giving me a high five. And you know what? I saw that as karma. I was told that I could sue him, but at the time, I really didn't have the time or money to do that. But fate made this man feel it in the end. So I let it all go and I just moved forward. Now I'm in my own place with my loving partner. And I'm now almost the same age as my former entitled boss when I was fired. And trust me, I will never treat kids the same way that this entitled boss treated me. Yeah, your former boss is absolutely the worst. Seriously, this guy was like, you can only work for me. You're gonna have to quit that other job. But by the way, I'm not gonna pay you anything extra. Then it's like, wait a second. second, then why would I ever quit that job? I totally understand where you're coming from, where you're like, wow, this job sucks, and I definitely need something else so I can make ends meet. So for this guy to try and deny you that kind of relief is just crazy to me. So good for you for moving on with your life, and it is so good to see that karma got back at this guy, because his behavior and the way he treated you was so unfair, and you definitely did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My stepmom no longer wants me a part of the family and has constantly treated me like garbage over the years. And at this point, I'm now living with my grandparents, and I simply have no desire to ever move back. Here's what happened. So I'm 20 years old, and I just got back from college. And recently, I got into a fight with my stepmom. I accidentally broke some glass on the door, and she had a temper tantrum over it. It was really humiliating because this happened in public. She started screaming at me and cussing me out, and it was then that I just lost my temper, and I said to her, wow, you didn't even ask if I was okay. And to that, she lost it even more and told me that if I didn't like her rules, then I can leave. So that's exactly what I did. And yes, I did pay someone to fix the glass, and I did apologize constantly to her, but she told me that my apology means nothing to her. So I thought to myself, okay, fine, whatever. I've been staying at my grandparents for the past 5 days, and almost every single day, her and my father try to guilt trip me back into the house. For reference, it was my birthday a couple of days ago, and they told me that if I came home, I could have my present, but I wasn't falling for it, and I told them that I'll come back when I come back, which at this point is probably never. Even my dad tries to talk to me, which I was open about, and he told me the next day that he would come and get me from my grandparents' house so that we could talk. Well, that day came, and when I asked him when he was getting me, he told me to have one of my grandparents drop me off instead at the house. And at this point, my thoughts were like, yeah, that's a trap. That is not gonna happen. My stepmother has also decided to be petty and kick me off of the Apple and Amazon family sharing. And I'm constantly being bothered that I need to go home. In fact, my father texted me yesterday saying to me, you need to remember all the good things we did for you in the past and how good your stepmother has been to you. And my response was to say, well, I'm focusing on the present and not the past. And I feel like that's another guilt trip tactic. So I just blocked them both. And trust me, I have a lot more stories about how awful they've treated me, which are just as bad, if not worse, than what they're currently putting me through. Wow, good for you for finally getting out of that house. It sounds like this has been like a repeat issue for long enough, and dealing with this kind of stuff can only bring you so far. Like anybody has their breaking point, and they can only put up with so much at a time. So hopefully you don't have to go back to that house anytime soon, because your dad and your stepmom sound incredibly toxic. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for calling out a Karen who was blatantly trying to steal from the store I was shopping at? Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened to me on Christmas Eve. I was working late that evening and got off duty at around midnight. My wife called me to tell me that we were out of baby formula and that I needed to pick up some before coming home. I stopped by our local store that's open for 24 hours, and of course, being Christmas Eve and nearing 1 o'clock in the morning, it was absolutely packed. They must have been short-staffed because there was only one checkout lane open at the time, so the line to get out of the store was quickly getting longer. So I grabbed the baby formula and quickly got in line. While patiently waiting my turn and scrolling through my phone, I noticed the entitled Karen of this story going down the line of people waiting to check out, asking them if she could borrow their ID, because apparently, and this is the story I got, she had returned too many things to the store without a receipt on her driver's license during the past year, and she had somehow reached her limit. She was actually hoping that someone would let them use their driver's license in order to make a return on her purchase, because she said, and I quote, "I thought it would make a nice Christmas present, but I simply don't have enough money to afford it." She eventually got to me, and I just politely declined. Now, for context, I'm currently wearing my uniform from work. I don't know why she didn't take my answer at face value, but she continued to accost me, wanting to use my identification, and even went so far as saying that I could use my work ID, and then she pointed at my chest. Now, I happened to glance down in the bag to see the items that she was attempting to return, and it was one of those high-cost electric razors. You know the kind. The ones that have the self-cleaning base that cost about $200. I also noticed that the packaging still had the anti-theft security device wrapped around the box, so it became pretty obvious that this woman had grabbed a plastic bag and then proceeded to take the item off of the shelf, put it in the bag, and pretend that she was trying to return it, when in all actuality, she was attempting to get free in-store credit or cash from this return. I very discreetly leaned over to her her ear, and I said that I know what you're trying to do, so why don't you just go ahead and put that razor back on the shelf where you found it? Well, when I said that, she got very angry with me.
How dare you accuse me of stealing? I'm just trying to make a nice Christmas for my family.
So, in a not-so-quiet voice, I said to her out loud, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't help you return your item that is still in the packaging with the anti-theft device still on it." Well, when I said that, several people in line realized what she was attempting to do, and they all started laughing. The entitled Karen, in a huff, left the rest of the line alone and proceeded to the men's hygiene aisle where the electric razors were kept. And I can only assume that she was going back there to put it back on the shelf and hopefully never make this kind of stupid decision ever again. Yeah, that lady was 100% trying to steal. And also, she's not very good at it because, like, seriously, the anti-theft device was still on it. What was she expecting? For them to be like, "Oh yeah, let me just give you money for this." Like, wouldn't that be a giant waving red flag that yes, she is absolutely trying to steal? Like, she clearly did not think this through at all. So good for you on your response, because seriously, that lady was completely out of her mind if she really thought that anybody was going to give her their ID. Because I know if I was in that situation, I absolutely would have said no, because what she was asking for is just completely insane. Am I the jerk for not signing my name off of my mom's house until I got paid by my sister? Because right now she's calling me money hungry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mother passed away suddenly about a month ago. It was a very shocking, traumatizing, and emotional situation, which I am sure is adding to all of these issues. She left her house to my older sister and myself, and I took 2 weeks off of work to help go through all of my mother's belongings and to try and coordinate the entire memorial. My sister moved into my mother's house shortly after my mother's passing, which we agreed on, and the other half of the agreement between us and our mother before she passed was that she was going to pay me half of the house's value, and this was also the agreed terms if I moved into the house instead. I have since informed my sister that I don't want the full half of the house's value, and instead I would be fine with about 25%, including the $11,000 my mom loaned me before she passed away. But here's the thing, she is asking me to sign my name off of the house's deed before she has even refinanced the house and paid me my portion. She is calling me money hungry and basically painting me as the villain when this was the expected and legal agreement the entire time. My husband and I could desperately use the money too, as we purchased my grandmother's house after her passing, and doing so put us into a lot of debt. Not that this really has any bearing on the situation at hand, but it seriously would help. So am I the jerk for not signing my name off the deed right away until I get paid? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and honestly, that's the exact same way I would handle it. She's only calling you money hungry because she wants your name off the deed. Like, the way she's acting is super sketchy, and I just wouldn't trust that entirely. So no, I think you're doing this all completely right, and if I was in your shoes, I would handle that the exact same way. My best friend constantly sleeps with married women, and recently crossed a line last week that has left me completely stunned and shocked at his behavior. And now, as a result, I am cutting him off as a friend and choosing to never deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my best friend has a thing for married older women, and over the years, he has had surprising success in this area. It started when he was 18 years old and slept with a married 30-year-old woman with a kid. They were both waiters at a restaurant, and after months of flirting, she slept with him. In the 7 years since, there have been 12 of them, all married or engaged, with ages ranging from 30 to 52 years old. Now, in the beginning, I thought the whole thing was funny, but as the years have gone on, I have grown completely disgusted by this behavior. If we are at a bar and he sees a bachelorette party, he's over there hitting on the bride-to-be. He coaches his nephew's Little League team just to meet the moms, and he's had to leave 3 different jobs because he was sleeping with married coworkers, and all the husbands found out, leading to confrontations while he was on the job. Now, the last straw for me was last week. I recently got engaged, and my fiance's family threw us an engagement party. It wasn't a surprise, so my fiance and I both invited who we wanted, and one of the people I wanted there was one of my former managers at work. Let's call him Tom. Tom is not his real name. Now, I am a CPA at a big firm, and Tom was really a mentor to me when I started. He left to work in the industry, but we kept in touch and we are still close. Tom is 40 years old and is just the nicest guy you will ever meet. So he and his wife come to the engagement party. I had never met his wife before, but she is absolutely beautiful. And at one point during the party, I see my friend talking to Tom's wife, all while Tom is taking a phone call. I immediately go over and interrupt the conversation, and I pull my friend aside and tell him not to even think about it, to which
my friend says that he wasn't going to, which was absolute BS, but I thought he took my warning seriously. But unfortunately, I was completely wrong. A few weeks later, Tom calls me and tells me that his wife has been acting strange ever since the engagement party, and he went through her phone and found text messages with another guy. And these messages included scandalous photos, if you know what I mean, and they were exchanged on both sides. So it was very clear that they had met up and spent some quality time together. Tom had confronted his wife the night before, and of course, it was my friend who she'd slept with. Well, Tom was devastated. He was crying on the phone, and he wasn't even angry. He just wanted to know why she did it, and was asking me to talk to my friend to get some more details. Well, I called my friend right after I got off the phone with Tom, and I basically exploded on him, ending our 20-year friendship just like that. Well, fast forward and it's been a week, and my friend hasn't stopped apologizing. Other than his despicable behavior with married women, he has been a really good friend to me. We have been like brothers ever since kindergarten. It hurts to throw away someone who has been such a big part of your life, but I just cannot be party to this anymore. I mean, am I making the right decision here? What should I do? Yeah, I think you're absolutely making the right decision. There is no way I would ever want to stay friends with that guy, especially after he broke up a marriage. Like, this Tom guy is completely devastated. He is torn to pieces because his wife was unfaithful, and it all begins and ends with the original poster's friend. Like, they just willingly ruined another marriage. Like, this is just nasty across the board. Like, there is no good excuse for this. So no, I don't blame you for breaking off from this guy, because if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have cut this guy off as well.
An entitled jerk freaks out at my job and treats me like garbage all because he doesn't get his way. So I decide to get some revenge by forcing him to apologize to me if he ever hopes to secure the reservation that he's trying to get. Here's what happened. So I own a store that's in the same building as a real estate office that rents beach houses on a small island. Now, we are open later than the real estate office, so they leave late check-in packages with us for their clients to come in and pick them up. Now, payment is due when they pick up sometimes, and payment must be with cash or a certified check. No personal checks or credit cards are allowed after hours. There's also no major chain hotels after 9 p.m. as everything is closed. Now, here's the thing. The clients are very informed on these policies. I mean, I hear the agents making the reservations when I'm in the office. Well, this is where our entitled jerk enters the story. He comes in to pick up his check-in package. I open the envelope and pull out the bill, which is right when he pulls out a personal check. I say to him, "I'm sorry, but we don't take personal checks." He hands me his confirmation, and I point to the bold print at the top of it that informs him of the payment policies. And it states quite clearly that we need certified checks or cash only. And when I say this to him, this guy loses his mind. He looks at me and says, "Do you know who I am?" I look at his paperwork and I say, "Sure, you're Mr. John Doe." And no, of course that's not his real name. He then starts in by saying, "You will take this check. And you know what? I could buy and sell you 10 times over, kid." As well as swearing at me multiple times and making personal insults towards me. Well, when he did this, I calmly put the keys and paperwork back in the envelope. I lean into him very close and calmly, and I quietly say to him, "There's an ATM at the corner. Once you have the cash and you apologize, you can have the package. Until then, you need to leave my store." Now, I was much larger and younger than he was, so he eventually got the picture and left. 20 minutes later, his wife comes in with the cash, but I inform her that was only half of the deal. She says to me, "He's a very proud man. He's not going to apologize." I say to her, "Well, I don't care if he's the Queen of England. I hope your car's comfortable because I give respect on the same level that I receive it." Well, after that, she must have given him an earful because 15 minutes later, he came in to give me the cash, he apologized, and then they went to their beach house. Now, he certainly wasn't happy, but maybe, just maybe, he learned a little bit of humility. That way, the next check-in person doesn't get the same kind of treatment. And no, the real estate office wasn't mad once they saw and heard the video of the interaction, because we laughed about that literally for over a month. Yeah, that entitled jerk was completely out of line. Like, who would go to a check-in person and be like, "Oh, I could buy and sell you 10 times over, kid"? Like, is that supposed to make me want to serve you better? If anything, it makes me do exactly what the original poster did. Tell you to get out and that I'm not going to serve you, and that I hope by doing so, I ruin your vacation. So honestly, I love the karma that came this guy's way, as he was forced to apologize and pretty much swallow his pride. Because you know for a fact he didn't mean it, but he had no choice but to do it if he ever expected to get that stupid beach house, and I find that hilarious and completely deserved. My spoiled, entitled brother throws an absolute fit when he finds out I bought a house before him, and now he's demanding that I allow him to move into my house, claiming that he has a rightful spot in my house simply because because he's my brother. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with my brother that I'm now at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I suddenly became a homeowner some time ago because a friend of mine's grandfather was moving to Florida and his house was ripe for the picking. I knew the old man really well, as he passed away a few months later from a sudden stroke. Anyways, he offered the house and property to me for $200,000, and I practically ran to the bank to apply for the loan. The house is a manufactured house from the 80s, but it was remodeled repeatedly by the former owner and has a separate garage building. The home and property could have gone for more, but he offered the house to me because he knew I would take care of it. I had $30,000 saved that made a good down payment, and I was very happy to leave my apartment. I mean, I wanted to move out of there eventually anyways, especially after what my cheating ex did, but that's a story for another time. So, when my brother found out that I bought a house, he went absolutely bonkers. For reference, my brother has a repeated history of copycatting me for the past decade, but when it comes to this, there was no way in the world he could copycat buying a house, especially with his terrible credit and his inconsistent income. And it's then that he got into an argument with me over how I was just trying to make him look bad by doing something that he couldn't. But that really is not the case. I literally just wanted the stupid house, and the price was too good to refuse. Then he told me I should have turned it down, but he literally had no good reason. I mean, I could practically see the screws getting looser with every single dumb excuse he made as to why I shouldn't have done it. But I pointed out that all of those excuses were just there because I did something that he currently can't. And when I bought this house, it had nothing to do with him. I just wanted to be a homeowner for the security and the extra space. And I finally don't have to store my camper at my parents' house, along with that garage that I can store stuff in and tinker in. Now, he's been copying me over so many stupid things. For example, if I bought a camper cot, he would buy the same thing. If I went to the gym, then he would go to the gym. If I bought a truck or alcohol or a TV, or if I bought a camper or a used portable DVD player, or if I went camping in a specific spot, he would literally do the exact same thing across the board. It literally didn't matter what I was doing, he was always tagging along. I mean, he acts like a complete child on so many things. Well, after weeks of openly fuming about me being a homeowner, my brother suddenly acted like he had another brilliant idea. He wanted to move in with me, and when he said that, I just laughed at him. He then ended up demanding that I rent one of my rooms to him. And the really funny part is that he only wanted to do it for $200 a month with utilities included because he shouldn't have to pay any more than that since we're family. Well, he flipped his lid when I said absolutely not. Then he got our parents involved again, although this time they actually sided with him first, even though it was mainly our mother. She and my brother showed up to my house demanding that I let my brother move in, and my brother had this awful grin on his face that I could tell he thought he was getting his way, all thanks to Mommy Dearest, but I literally screamed no to both of their faces. My mom started to cry and said that I was being a jerk, so I called my dad, and he told my mom that he had warned her that I wouldn't do it, and that they need to leave me alone. My mom whined that my brother was living out of his camper next to a shabby house that he was renting space from, but I said that wasn't my problem to fix. And my brother, by the way, has proven countless times that he cannot be trusted. My brother was fuming to the point of being red with veins popping out of his neck, and my mom tried one more time to convince me with tears, but that just made me even angrier. I then went on a rant that was something like this: so you can't buy a house, but you wanted to invade mine? I refuse to ever live with my brother again. I would sooner live in the woods without electricity than ever live with him. He's intentionally irritating, and if I had him as a roommate, I just know that he would steal my booze, he would take all my stuff, and invade my privacy non-stop. That is not going to happen. And I do not care how much mom is going to cry. That is not going to work on me. Well, when I said that, my mom broke down and finally conceded that she was never going to convince me to allow my brother to move in. She even had to take my brother by the hand and leave my property with him because he initially refused to go and kept begging her to turn back and make me let him move in. I then yelled at him that it was hilarious that he called me a mama's boy before because he had become exactly that, and that this was just like one time when he tried to get our mother to make me trade vehicles with him, all because he felt ashamed to be driving a minivan. My brother then yanked away from mom and then started swearing at me. Eventually, after some back and forth between the two of us, my mom got in front of him and told him to just go. Then he drove off in his rattle-can Silverado without her, which by the way, he had driven her there. So then I had to take her home. While taking my mom home, I made things very clear with my mother over why I could never trust my brother ever again, and how his life was not my burden to bear. I then told her how little my brother was offering for rent anyways, which is something he conveniently had not told her. Now, fast forward, and I later rented that same room to one of my best friends for $600 a month, and he pays for his own utilities. The other 2 rooms are my bedroom and a home office, and there's an extra room in the separate garage as well. And wouldn't you guess it, my mother tried to make me let my brother live in the garage instead. She says there's enough room in the storage room for a bedroom, but again, I said absolutely not. But simply out of spite, that has been turned into another friend's rented room, as I just remodeled it with some plywood. And yeah, I rented them out of spite. And that's because I didn't want my brother to live with me in any capacity. My brother later ended up having a complete meltdown in front of our parents over how he's the older brother. He should be the one who owns a house first. He's supposed to be successful, and I'm supposed to be the big loser in his shadow. Our dad then poked him with his cane and told him that this is not how life works, resulting in a massive argument. They told him to get out and not come back until he's cooled off, learning right then and there that he's just being pointlessly jealous. But I'm honestly so sick of my brother, and I seriously hope I don't have to deal with him in this way ever again. Wow, your brother sounds absolutely pathetic. Who would show up to their sibling's house and be like, no, I want to move in. You have to let me move in. I demand it. Like, what the original poster is describing is really, really sad. Like, who in their right mind would act this way? Like, seriously. So truly, good for you for standing your ground and telling pretty much everybody to get lost, because the original poster's brother sounds absolutely unhinged. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My extended family is furious with me and is claiming that I stole a family name that my grandmother offered me, claiming that I had no right to use it since I'm not a blood-related family member. And now, despite my grandparents and my father defending my good name, my entire extended family is against me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad is not my biological dad, but he's raised me since I was 7 months old. My biological father was in and out of my life, and he was not good to me at all. I never really wanted him around, but I had such a good relationship with my dad. I knew love and family with my parents over the guy who just wanted to mess with my mom and just wanted to stop me from being adopted and would never show me any kind of interest as his own flesh and blood. Now, I have younger siblings from my parents. My dad has siblings, nieces, and nephews, and both of his parents are alive, and I'm so close to his parents. My grandparents never saw me as less than their grandchild, meaning that blood and legality never mattered to them. I was one of theirs, and they were my granny and grampy, and the name Grampy was born from my inability to say grandpa as a really little kid for some reason. Well, fast forward, and I got married to my amazing wife, and my wife and I are now expecting a baby girl. My grandma approached us and said that she wanted to make it clear that if we wanted to, and there was no pressure from them, we could consider using the family girl name for our daughter. It's a name usually used in the middle name, but every few generations, it gets used as a first name and usually goes for the first granddaughter. My wife and I love the idea, and we love the name. So we decided to use it as a first name, which made my grandma so happy, and my dad actually cried when he heard it. But the other members of my extended family were not so pleased, and I was accused of stealing the name from the legitimate first granddaughter, which is the one who would be blood, and I was apparently stealing it from my cousins, who should have been first in priority to use the name. Well, my grandparents and my dad came to my defense, and they said that my daughter and I are legitimate members of this family, so I didn't steal anything. My grandma even said that she offered it to me, but my extended family said that I should have had common sense and the compassion to understand that I'm not actually a blood member of the family, and that neither is my daughter. Well, because of that, a fight broke out over all of this, and I know that most of the extended family firmly blame me for agreeing to use the name. So honestly, am I the jerk for listening to my grandma and taking the name that they offered me? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, of course you are not the jerk. Your grandmother offered you the name. Like, literally, why on earth would they be upset over the grandmother making a decision? Like, what is wrong with these people? That is so weird to me. And the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, you're not really a member of the family because you're not blood related. It's like, oh, okay, now I really know how you feel about me. Apparently, all these years beforehand were just a complete act, because right now your true colors are showing quite clearly. Like, that's insane to me, and that is so unacceptable. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and the fact that your extended family is acting this way and trying to blame you, in my opinion, is completely toxic and so uncalled for. Am I the jerk for being upset about the pay I received after I was a DJ for my friend's wedding? Because right now, my friend has blocked me and we're not even talking anymore. And And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm a 21-year-old female, and I had been friends with this girl who's also 21 for about 2 years, and we were decently close. She was getting married, and she asked me if I would be her DJ for her wedding. Now, I am a hardcore music head, and I am a great playlist maker, but I've never DJ'd before. I agreed to do it, but I wasn't thrilled that I wouldn't get to enjoy her wedding fully. She said that she would pay me for my service, which I thought, okay, fair enough. But because she is my friend, I didn't discuss actual pricing because I just assumed that she would pay me fairly. I brought my own equipment as well as my friend's equipment to make a full setup, and I needed 2 setups since one of them would be for the ceremony and the other one would be for the reception. She pre-made a list of songs that she wanted while people were eating at the reception and made sure to tell me that I can't deviate from it at all. She was very restrictive of what I could play for dancing because she wanted no rap or hip-hop or even any country music. I mean, I had to send her the pop songs in advance just to see if she approved of them, and even still, people weren't dancing to the music that she chose. So I went out to the dance floor for the cha-cha slide. I knew how long the song was and I only danced for the first minute, and I got everybody involved in dancing. Then my friend's speaker setup malfunctioned and the music cut while I was on the dance floor. The bride cut her eyes at me and said in the most bridezilla tone, "Why is the DJ on the dance floor?" And she said this in front of everyone. And right at that moment, I felt so small. I did end up fixing the problem, but the issue was something out of my control, and it would have happened anyways. Also, the song The Wobble was heavily requested by everybody there, to which I had to keep saying no because she told me that I couldn't. Now, I let the bride know that this was being heavily requested, but she said to me, "If you play that song, you won't be getting paid." So I said to myself, cool, we're not gonna play The Wobble. By the end of the wedding, I was upset because of the way she treated me, and the fact that I was stuck behind the DJ booth the entire wedding by myself, directly in the hot sun without shade for 4 hours straight. And you know what? She rode off into the sunset without paying me. And then I got a message from her after her honeymoon saying that she has my money when she got back. And you know what she gave me? She gave me a gift card with $15 on it. And after that, I was pissed off. She told me she didn't have a lot of money after paying her photographer friend $1,000 and paying for her other wedding things. Also, I was told that this was never supposed to be a payment, but a gift of appreciation, and that as her friend, I should have done it for free. That she saw this as an opportunity to start my DJ career, and that I should be grateful for the experience. When I confronted her about this, I was told that I was a bad friend for ruining her wedding day, because when she thinks about her wedding now, it will remind her of how she lost a friend. She then gave me $75 and unfriended me on everything, and now we don't even talk anymore. So seriously, was I the jerk for complaining about my pay? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. She mistreated you at this wedding. She was so aggressive towards you the entire time, and then she has the gall to be like, "Oh, I was trying to help you start your career. You should be grateful for the exposure. If you were a good friend, you would do it for free." It's like, what are you talking about? That is insane. Like, where did she even get this idea that you're trying to be a DJ? Like, if anything, she's only saying that to try and guilt trip you for even saying that you want to get paid for your time. Like, the money issue should have been worked out far in advance, which is a mistake I think you won't be making twice after this. But for her to basically be like, "Oh yeah, you should do it for free," especially after the way she treated you, that is insane in my opinion, and there's just no good excuse for that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because your friend treated you like garbage, and that, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for leaving dinner early, all because my sister was over an hour late once again? Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I had plans to go out to dinner with my sister, since this is something that we do every single month. She lives in my hometown, and I live in the next state over with my boyfriend. We are about 35 minutes to an hour apart depending on traffic, but we agreed to meet closer to the hometown with my mom. Now, when it comes to my sister, she is always late. I expect she'll always be at least 30 minutes late, but it's even been up to a few hours. And not just random plans. I'm talking like weddings and graduations too. It's been brought up in the past by my mom and I, but she always brushes it off and gets upset. My boyfriend drove me over, as I can't drive, and he offered to drop me off before he headed out for plans of his own near the house, and then he would come back when he was done. And I assumed that after dinner, we would just hang out at her house either way. I get to the place and I start calling my sister. I get my mom a few minutes later, and she says they're behind because it took a while to get my 1-year-old nephew ready, and my sister got in the shower later than expected. I didn't even know my nephew was coming, and she usually tells me if he is. Her husband was apparently there to let mom in when she showed up, but went back to sleep as soon as she got there. Now, I'm not sure why he couldn't get the baby ready, but that's none of my business. I checked maps and it says 30 35 minutes, and if you add in getting the baby strapped and secured, and then putting him in either the stroller or the front carrier on her body, I was looking at maybe 40 minutes. And to top it all off, we had a reservation that she made, not me. I had never been to this place, and I didn't know if it was one of those places that don't let you have the table if your whole group isn't there. There was really no space to wait inside, so I would have to stand outside and wait for her. But anyways, I didn't feel like sitting alone for 40 minutes, even if I could. Now, she doesn't keep her friends waiting this long when they make plans, and I don't get why it's okay to do this to me and my mom. Now, I'm speaking to mom as they're trying to change the reservation online, but at that point, I'm just fed up. If we agreed to be there at a certain time, be there at that time. 5 or 10 minutes late is fine, but not this. I told my mom that I'm going back home. I didn't feel like fuming at the table and acting like I wasn't mad when they got there, which is something that I've had to do several times before. When I said this, she sounded hurt and mad, but said that it was fine and that she would go home as well. Since then, I haven't spoken to my sister, and this was a few weeks ago, and my mom doesn't want to get in the middle of it, but I told her I wasn't speaking to her until I get an apology. My mom told her that she can't keep doing this on the ride back home, and she agrees that it's an issue, but won't say anything else. It's ridiculous to just always be late because you're bad at time management. She also wants to use the excuse of, oh, but it takes so long to get the baby ready, which I would accept if it wasn't for the fact that this has been a problem long before my nephew was even born. So I really need to know if I'm the jerk for leaving early, because right now I'm still upset and I don't know what to do. It really sounds like your sister is doing this almost on purpose, or she just literally doesn't care about your time. And both situations, in my opinion, are not good, because I am right there with the original poster. If we are scheduled to be somewhere, you had better show up. If you're showing up almost an hour late, that shows to me immediately that you don't care about me, and you definitely don't care about any kind of commitments of any kind. So I don't blame you for getting up and going home. Like, I wouldn't want to stay there for an hour. And I think like 5 or 10 minutes late is not a big deal, but to consistently be almost an hour late every single time you do anything together, that in my opinion is completely unacceptable, and I think the fault absolutely falls on the sister. My boyfriend is stressing me out beyond belief, as he claims that I don't actually care about his situation, where he's grieving the loss of his uncle. But despite the fact that I have a lot of things going wrong in my own life, my boyfriend is demanding that I drop everything that's going on around me and only focus on him in his time of need. And right now I feel very overwhelmed and I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my boyfriend's uncle passed away this week after a long battle with cancer, and his family is in complete disarray. It was his father's brother, and his dad is really broken right now. Now, I'm having a hard time at home as well, as my mother's electricity has been cut off for a $4,500 bill that we just can't afford. My mother is on disability, and that is her only income. I also have a part-time job, which doesn't pay me nearly enough. My mother and I also take care of my niece, who is my sister's daughter. We do this because she is almost a deadbeat and couldn't care less if the child has ever eaten or even taken a bath. We also watch over my 80-year-old grandmother who lives with us, so I also have problems at home, making it hard for me to be there for him right now. When his uncle passed away, I left work just to be there for him and his family, and I wanted to make sure I could console him in a time like this. I've done everything I can for him, as I have also went through a close family death when my father died. I stayed at his house all day consoling and helping, but I am a grown woman with obligations and responsibilities too. I also have a life, and eventually I had to go home to check on my household, as I'm like the man of the house. My mother, my niece, and my grandmother have no one but me. I do everything that they can't get done, and I take care of them since my father passed. I have to be there, and I can't spend all my time with him. I had to leave his house to take my niece to her dad's house, and then drive my mom to the local welfare to help her with paperwork, just so she can get her electric bill paid off. He makes me feel as if I don't care because I had to leave to help my own family, and I can tell he's mad at me by the way he acted when I told him I have to leave. He says to me that he doesn't want me to leave and that I'm leaving just because I don't want to be around him, and the way he said that was just so insensitive to my situation. He is now being very short with me over text messaging, as well as taking long periods to respond, and overall being vague towards me when I'm trying to be loving and comforting, and I just don't understand him. For reference, this also happened 3 weeks ago when his dad was having surgery and had some minor complications, and he was just freaking out over it. I was at home with my niece with no one else, as my mother was also out of the store. My niece was throwing up profusely as she had caught the stomach bug. I couldn't just leave her there because she's 7 years old, and my grandmother can't watch her anymore. So when I finally made it to his house afterwards, he was so mad at me for not dropping everything and coming to his aid, but I physically
physically and morally couldn't do it at the time. It wasn't my fault. I mean, my baby was sick. I wasn't leaving her to go comfort a grown man who has family around him. When I'm like that, you need to drop everything for me. I would do it for you. You need to come to me. I need you when things like that happen. And still, when I explained to him the reason why I couldn't come right away, he still said that he didn't care. I feel as though he relies on me for all of his happiness and healing, but I am just one person. I can't help him all the time. He's been acting like my problems and issues just don't really matter, and it's really adding so much stress to my already stressful life. So seriously, am I being gaslit or manipulated, or am I just not doing enough for him? What should I do? I think this really is a catch-22, because on one end, I think obviously you're not doing anything wrong, like you're showing up as much as you can and you're being there for him, but the way he's reacting is just not fair. Like, I totally understand he's going through the grieving process, and his uncle probably meant a lot to him, but it's almost like he's taking that out on you, and that, in my opinion, is completely unfair. You are not the enemy here. You're doing the best you can with your circumstances, and I think it would be unreasonable for anyone to be there 24/7. And just because you can't be there all day every day doesn't mean that you don't care about him and that you're not there for him. So in my opinion, I think his expectations for you are just completely out of line. I think the way he's acting is completely unreasonable, and in my opinion, I don't think you've done anything wrong to warrant this kind of behavior.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.